Mr. Frazier.
Here.
Mr. Lance. Mr. Moss.
Here.
Ms. Seymour said she would be a little late. Ms. Jordan.
Here.
You have 6 members present.
The first item on our agenda is the Brownfield redevelopment plan for the Southfield Park Plaza, and Mr. John will start off with that.
Yes, Madam President. This afternoon, Ms. Freeman, Neil Silver will be making a brief presentation regarding this project. We have the developer here as other members of his team. This item is scheduled for a public hearing at the regular July 21st meeting.
Good afternoon, everybody. I really would just like to introduce Neil Silver. He is the attorney for the Brownfield Authority. He's going to come forward and go over some of the points that the Brownfield Authority has discussed, and then we'll invite Mr. Jonah to come forward and talk more detail about the plan and some of the intimate details.
If you catch your name and brief address for the record.
621 South Main Street, Plymouth Road. Main Street, Plymouth, Michigan, 48170. It goes slower than I will. All right, hi. It's a pleasure to meet all of you that I have not met yet before. I was retained by the city to assist with the Brownfield plan and the development agreement associated with it, with the Brownfield plan for the former St. Bede property. What they're looking to do there, I'm sure you may or may not know, but just a quick summary, they anticipate building 2 retail buildings for 32,000 square feet, and then 2 3-story apartment buildings for 114 units and a clubhouse. They're stating to us that upon completion, the taxable value of the project will be $15 million. They've asked us for Brownfield assistance, and the Brownfield plan has in fact been approved by the Brownfield Authority. Just a couple of quick points as to what it contains. The reason that the property is in fact eligible is that the church building itself was a functionally obsolete building. They have over $4 million in eligible activity costs. Eligible activity costs in this type of project are lead, asbestos abatement, building demolition, infrastructure improvements, and public second site property. And those categories are they have all of their costs in a category sheet that I believe most of you I see holding on to. Now, I do not know if that's one that's been updated to show all costs or if that's the one that it is. Okay. The obligation to reimburse the developer for those eligible activity costs that we approve will not exceed 14 years. They've agreed that the demolition will be completed by the end of this year. All site prep will be completed by March 30th of next year, and that the development will be completed no later than 36 months from the effective date of the agreement, which we would anticipate to be able to approve next week. If on the effective date, 36 months from that date that we sign the agreement, they do not create the $15 million worth of taxable value that they promised us, we would then prorate down their eligible costs. So let's just say that we go out there in 36 months and the taxable value is $7.5 million. Their right for reimbursement for their $3.175 million in eligible activity costs would be cut in half. So we're in it proportionately to what they promised us. They can't even submit an invoice to us for reimbursement until they've created at least $5 million worth of taxable value of the property. There is no we are not reimbursing interest, and so the risk, there is essentially, if we would agree to reimburse them, there's very little risk associated with the city's participation. Additionally, they've agreed to grant us, upon execution, a right-of-way along Southfield Road for future Southfield improvements. We would allow them to use that road, that right-of-way right now for surface parking or landscaping, and then we would permit them to be a non-conforming use if those spots were, for the code, were necessary at the time when we took them. On a separate, distinct, completely separate matter, they've realized that based upon their use of the property that there will be an increased cost to public safety. and they've agreed for a period of 10 years to give the city $100,000 annually as a donation to go towards police and fire, which is roughly the cost of one police and fireman without benefits. And if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer them at this time.
Council? Mr. Cybert?
Who do you work for?
You. My firm is for Keskins over here.
That's why I want to make sure, but you're representing the city council and not Mr. Jones.
That is correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to state that the Finance Committee did meet on this, and included Mr. Silver also, and a petitioner, and Mark from Showstack, and we, Myla and I and Joan voted in favor of this project and for this the Brownfield. So I just wanted to state that. We went through almost exactly the same thing that you're going through now, and a little more in detail, but and I just wanted to give that report. No one had the minutes of that meeting, I don't think.
I do have two other questions. Originally, and I think I understood it, I saw something about 20 years, and now this says 14. Can you, I think in something we received earlier?
Sure.
Can you explain why it's 14 years?
The eligible activity costs have come down from what we're approving the reimbursement for.
Okay.
And therefore, based upon the estimate, it actually pays back, I think, in 12 and a half years,
All right.
but we've capped the recovery at 14 years.
And do we know the value of the, say we didn't have this proposal before us, and we get to the point which we hope won't be in too far in the distant future, where we're redoing Southfield Road. If we were to negotiate then for the right-of-way, let's say in 2017, what do you think that would cost us?
Oh, I wouldn't get a guess, but it would be very expensive as it was part of.
24,000 square
Excuse me?
feet.
I couldn't hear you.
It's 24,000 square feet. $20 a square foot would be a number that would not surprise me, or $1.5 million. If you were to go take it through a condemnation, this could easily be $750,000 to $1 million
Okay.
Piece of property.
Well, the reason I ask that is that I think that's a considerable factor in this deal. And the $100,000 annually, that would go for 14, oh, you said 10 years. Okay. So that's $1 million then. Okay.
I have a question. In terms of the developer being required to pay back the city after, but the city requiring to pay him after they spent $5 million, how was that limit established? The developer spends at least $5 million for developing the property, and that's when we're going to.
Remember, how this works is every year they get a tax bill just like every other citizen in the community. And basically, this property being assessed at zero today because of its prior use is a church. So every dollar that they pay in property taxes is increment that's available for reimbursement. We don't pay them anything. We reimburse them their taxes that they've been paying. But they can't submit even an invoice to us for their first reimbursement check until they've at least shown good faith and created $5 million worth of taxable value out there.
And that's my question. How was that amount established, the $5 million? Why couldn't it be higher to require the developer to put forth?
Negotiation.
Personally, I'd like to see a larger commitment. I mean, we are giving a commitment to them by, first of all, making it a brownfield and making many of the sites eligible for brownfield development. and monies associated with that, why couldn't we have a higher limit that the developer has to pay in terms of his just get paid up?
Well, if you look at the, and obviously it's up to, it's city council's pleasure, but if you look at there are two triggers in place to protect us. One is that they can't even enter the game until they've got $5 million, okay? And then the game is over and the amount is set in stone in 36 months. So if they are lagging behind, and let's just say they were to get to, they got to the 5 million, but they got no further, we would probably be out of this by the time they got to the $5 million, because we'd only have to pay a third of the cost back. That's the proportionality.
I mean, if I may, the reason we were pushing for the $5 million is because we've only got so many more months left in this year. If we had been here and done this 6 months ago, we wouldn't have a problem with it. We just don't know if we can spend $5 million, physically spend $5 million before the end of the year, and we want to submit for the taxes for next year. That's the reason for the $5 million.
So it would have been higher.
Yeah, we don't have, by the end of next year, we don't have, but physically, we don't know if we can get to that $5 million because there's just so much time left for construction.
And remember, December 31st is the valuation date.
That's the cutoff
Whatever value is in place at December 31st, when our tax roll is adopted that third or fourth Monday in May, that'll be the number. So it's a value that they can create by December 31st. And if they don't hit 5 million, then the clock pushes back until December 31, 2015.
Any other questions?
I have one thought on Southfield, it has on the site plan.
Well, why don't we, without any objection, we'll move this forward to, July 21st meeting. Any objection?
I have one question. My question is for the $100,000 that we're agreeing to be paid annually, which account does that go into?
We will need to create an account to receive those funds. It will be going into the general fund, though.
Because if it's being designated for police, then I want to make sure that if that's the commitment of the council, that it's truly going in that area, instead of the general fund.
We will make that happen. Candidly, we have not created the account number, and we will create an account number and a corresponding expenditure. So it's very, very clean and very transparent.
Okay, thank you.
Clarification, that's public safety, isn't it?
Public safety.
Public safety.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Perkins?
Yeah, is Terry still here? Thank you, Terry.
Terry Crook.
Good. I was just looking at, and what brought me, or maybe bring this up was that the easement along Southfield Road.
Yes.
When you look at the site plan, and then I've seen the cut that they're making now, possibly for asphalt, Mr. Jonah, is that what they're doing now, cutting for asphalt, grading, or?
They're doing mass grading right now, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, the cut is almost close to the fence, and I'm just wondering, what landscaping is going between the sidewalk and the parking lot? I know it shows trees, but trees are just...
Right, there's a substantial amount of landscape. It's a combination of wrought iron fencing, berming, and shrubs and trees. And that's shown in a separate landscape submittal. But there is substantial landscaping going along 12 Mile as well as Southfield
The
Road.
only thing is the site plan without the landscaping, and landscaping is separate?
I think it's the second page of your packet.
Well, that, you know, that's...
It's a conceptual.
But see, that shows the sidewalk and the easement in Southfield right away. So the green is in Southfield right away. And in between the trees, you see the little green. I guess I just try to, I don't just want the cars directly up to the rail. You know what I mean, Mr. Jonah?
Yes.
You know, the way the cut looks like, if the car went up there to the front end, if it went up to the bumper, you'd be almost right to the fence.
Well, right now, you had asphalt that was all almost up
I
in the
know
road. It's deceptive what you see today. They're going, they mass grader and they're stockpiling all the, repulverized in your parking lot, they're mass grading. And it's not what you're saying, there's gonna be a fill to come in and there's plenty of room for landscaping.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I can verify that your plan that you approved has substantial landscape screening.
That's the only thing, because in the cut that's being made, and I just wanna make sure if there's trees there, they have to have enough room to grow and work,
Right.
you know, so. Anyway.
Yeah, Terry Stafford, a maintenance engineer. I don't know whether this is a question either you or Mr. Jones can answer, but the 5 residents here where the side yard setback was changed from like 90 to 45, where is the wall going? Can you show me where the wall, do you have something you can show us where the wall is going?
The wall is roughly running parallel with the utility poles and where there's a number of trees along that rear property line.
It's at the property line.
It's right at the property line, but
Between the resident and the side yard setback?
That's right.
It's on that line,
Yes.
where the utility pole is.
that's correct.
That utility pole is.
That utility pole
It's already in place to get
is
there.
being straightened by
Edison.
Okay, so that's where the wall is.
Yes.
All right, so I mean, thank you.
And it'll be 8 foot high.
8?
That's what the residents
I heard
requested.
there was 18.
8
Okay.
It's a great
It's a high wall.
Okay, so it looks like this will move forward to our agenda next week. The next item on our agenda is the economic development.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, no. Go ahead, Ms. Cricket.
The city of Southfield learned that the Economic Development Corporation, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, is requiring that all existing smart zones seek an extension and modify our original agreement. As many of you will remember, in 2003, the city of Southfield worked with the city of Troy to formulate a joint LDFA area. At that time, the city of Southfield dedicated our funds towards the building of American Drive, and the city of Troy dedicated their capture towards assisting with the establishment of Automation Alley. At this time, the city is looking to seek a 5-year extension to our existing plan, as well as look at a 15-year option. The state is asking that we create a stronger regional collaboration effort with some other partners throughout the state of Michigan. We are exploring those options currently, but at this time we also thought it would be a great opportunity for everyone to get better acquainted with Automation Alley. And so we asked the executive director, Mr. Ken Rogers, to join us here today, and he's here. And they have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm going to turn on the computer, and Fred and
Yeah, while you're turning that on, I just want to make a comment. This LDFA plan has a fund balance of approximately $1.5 million, brings in just under $250,000 a year. It's been essentially on our part enacted. Our original project for Southfield was the development of American Drive and the interchange. This week, we will receive the bids for the mill and the resurface for 11-mile road, 2,300 feet east of Inkster. I will be proposing to council to pay for that road project out of that fund balance. It is an eligible activity within the LDFA plan. I want to make this real clear, the 5-year, this LDFA, the joint LDFA between Southfield and Troy will cease to exist if this 5-year extension is not granted. And I also think it's important that the ask that council will see in this plan is we are asking the city to put $50,000 a year into Automation Alley. So I want everyone to clearly know that is the ask today. So you've got about $250,000 a year coming into your LDFA. Without this extension, it goes away. We're also proposing within this LDFA plan to broaden and clean up what we're doing along Inkster, American Drive, create a stronger brand identity for that section of the city. So we're looking at this as a real opportunity. We thought it was important to bring Automation Alley in to council for you folks to hear their presentation. And it should be noted the Finance Committee spent about half hour, 45 minutes on this topic last week as well. And Mr. Peterson.
Let me kick it off and say good afternoon. My name's Ken Rogers. I'm Executive Director of Automation Alley, Mayor Lawrence. And Council, thank you for having me today. I appreciate it. Just a quick couple of things about Automation Alley. We're a regional consortium, and I'll talk about this on the slide. We're a technology organization branding Southeast Michigan as a center for excellence in technology. And we're a region that encompasses business, government, and education. That's the three-legged stool that we're founded upon. We think if this partnership works well, Automation Alley will do well in terms of branding our area across the country and around the world. You'll see that we're a regional organization. We encompass 8 counties, I should say, and the city of Detroit. To that end, we have 4 offices. We have a new office in Detroit. We have an office in 3 other areas in the region. What's our mission? Well, our goal is to take this innovative cluster we found here in Southeast Michigan, and by providing programs and services, grow that cluster and that technology business through entrepreneurship, increasing exporting, attract direct and foreign investment, develop high-tech talent, support advanced manufacturing, and help technology-driven companies grow and succeed. Our vision is that we want to brand this region and be acknowledged as the leading technology and innovation center in the United States by 2020. I just want to comment about that for a minute. We do a technology report on the state of technology economy in Southeast Michigan. There are 15 technology centers in the United States that are recognized, from Silicon Valley, Dallas, Boston, and so on, around the country. We're one of the 15. In the ranking that we have out of the 15 centers, we're no worse in any classification when you're rating technology areas than mid part of the 15. And in fact, in many areas, we lead the way. So we're there. We're not a wannabe. We're a player in the business of technology in the United States and across the world. So who are we? By industry sector, you can see our technology and manufacturing is the largest sector at 63%, and then our professional services, nonprofit, government, and education. And by the way, as we go through this, if you have a question, stop me and I'd be glad to answer it. What are some of the things that we do at Automation Alley? This is really a big portion of our business, and that's talent development. We have a federal grant currently for $5 million, and it's to grow the talent here in Southeast Michigan. And what this basically means and how this works is that, so I'm a company, and I'm short on the caliber of high-tech talent that I need. So I've got 2 choices with this grant. I can have the government pay for most of my training to take a current employee and advance their technology training, or to have a new hire and have them take advanced technology training so that I can fill these jobs that are going begging here in this region. They have to guarantee employment, the company does, for that person going through that training. We're going to train, currently we've completed over 500 trainees in this program. By the end of next year, we think it'll be at or near 1,000. So what we're doing is elevating the skill sets of the workers here in Southeast Michigan But when you look at who's coming out of Southfield, taking part of this program, you have Secure 24, Pixo Group, and W3R Consulting are just some of the companies here in Southfield that have their employees in this program. In terms of entrepreneurial service, we know that there's a, as I mentioned earlier, we're a technology hub acknowledged around the United States, and for good reason. You'll look at our pre-seed fund, and that means a company starting out. I've got a company, I need a prototype for my company. I don't have the funds for it. We'll invest anywhere from $50,000 to about $200,000. We started 38 of those companies and funded them. But the important thing to note here is twofold. One, we've invested since 2003 over $8.6 million in these companies, these 38 companies. Here's the big part. These 38 companies attracted additional $112 million in investment. Now, these 38 companies are companies in southeast Michigan, scattered throughout this region. The bottom line is nearly $120 million in investment dollars have come to this region where these companies are located as they're expanding and growing their companies. That's pretty big news. We've served hundreds of clients with consultations, referrals, and other resources that we provide to these companies. We have somebody, if we make an investment in a company, we don't just hand them a check. What we're going to do is give them an initial investment and set benchmarks for them to accomplish their goals, and we'll fund them as they go through that process. And we also have someone on staff that follows the company. If they get stuck, if they need some help, they're trapped in some area, we'll step in and we'll provide some assistance for them so that we give them every chance to be successful that we know how to do. We partner with the MEDC, the SBDC. BANSOM is a regional technology partnership that we belong to, and the NEI, which is the foundation out of Detroit. We go on trade missions around the world. We recognize that small and mid-sized companies can find their way around the world. I'm a former owner of a small company, small business, for 20 years here in Oakland County. And I remember my first trade mission, we went to China. And the success that we had there was overwhelming. I was stunned. And here we were taking these small companies, hadn't been any further than Grand Rapids or Grand Blanc, getting business, and there they were in Beijing. And you'd say to yourself, is this going to be successful for them? We had prepared them, their meetings were all set for them. When they landed, everything was done for them. But were they going to be successful? We brought back millions of dollars from that first trade mission in China, and I told our staff, that's it, we're in the trade business. Our companies can be successful around the world. We've been on 19 missions currently right now. Our staff is in Barnesboro, England, at an air show in Barnesboro. We have 10 companies there with the MEDC and others at this trade mission. So 21 missions, we've taken 147 companies around the world. But here it is. I mean, what happened? What happened is $350 million in investments have come back to Southeast Michigan in contracts for these companies. So 147 companies came, and out of those 147 companies in 21 different nations, they brought back nearly $400 million in contracts. We think by the end of this year, we'll be at $500 million in companies having export contracts here in Southeast Michigan. So when I say exporting, I'm talking about companies making products and services here and sending them over to Germany, to the Czech Republic, and so on. Business attraction. In 2011, we decided to incorporate in our trade missions a business attraction activity. Could we bring companies back to this region? We went to the federal government and got a grant to add on to our building. And we have this international attraction component now. What this says to these companies is that we'll house you for nothing. We'll give you all kinds of services for nothing. But the bottom line is you have to make us a promise. And that promise is that if you will start a business somewhere in southeast Michigan, we can't tell people where to locate, but we can tell them somewhere in southeast Michigan. If you locate here, we'll give you these services at no charge. And we've done that, and 12 companies have located here. They've now hired, since 2011, over 300, nearly 400 now, employees, and that's direct hires in this region. And we think that's a very successful activity. Right now we have people from Saudi Arabia, somewhere from the east, France, Germany, in our building right now, being housed there and serviced and helped there. So what happened with all this? So two presidents, President Obama and President Bush, called us to the White House. We received the highest award the nation could give. That's the E-Star Award, twice, from two presidents. It's never happened in Michigan before. It's an award for excellence in exporting. And the country has recognized Automation Alley for our business in that area. So Lawrence Tech has been on those missions, Quality Engineering, Clayton and McCurvey, and others have been part of our trade mission activity. We're in the defense business. We're under contract with the Army. We have an office close to the military location in Warren. There's a military laboratory in Warren. In normal times, they buy $14 billion a year for the Army. Well, you just can't ignore that kind of economic power. So for 6 years, we knocked on the door of the Army, tried to get in. Finally, the 7th year, we got in the door. We now have engineers under contract with the Army, and these engineers work on replacement parts for the Army. And so if they can't find a replacement part for this battery attachment in a land vehicle, we'll go out and find vendors that will make that part. But we'll explore the vendor. We'll look at their finances. We'll look at their past history. Have they worked for the Army? And on, so that we can rate them up to 80 different ways. We give that ranking then to the Army, and they're able to find vendors that can help replace equipment parts that they desperately need. So what's happened with that? Well, we've taken 370 companies to the Army. And the results for local contracts, we brought back $2.5 million for local companies within the last 2 years. We also do some reverse engineering, and I got a call from our director of the defense manufacturing the other day. We're going to get a new contract for the Abrams tank and some other, excuse me, you didn't have water, some other projects that we'll have going with the Army outside of just replacement parts. We do reverse engineering for them. What that really means is the Army's bought a part, and the company that made that part is no longer in business. All the diagrams, and thank you very much, appreciate it. All the diagrams and so on are gone. The prints are gone. We'll reverse engineer that product. Let me give you just one quick example. The Army in Afghanistan called one of their leaders and said, we've been referred to you, we've got a portable bridge that we use in Afghanistan. He said, there are only 2 in the Army like this bridge. They're small, they go over small rivers, they can collapse it across and put equipment and people over that bridge. It's out of service. We can't get it repaired. They flew that bridge into Selfridge. We picked it up, and in a month, 5 weeks, brought it back to Selfridge on a plane back to Afghanistan. That's the kind of thing. We re-engineered that bridge. We hired companies to make the products and put it back in service and sent it back to the service people. That was a real good feeling there to get that done for the troops. Pratt & Miller Engineering says the support, guidance, and relationships Automation Alley provided helped us accelerate our business in the defense industry. I'll tell you what that means. He called one day, people from Pratt & Miller asked us to come out. He said, we do most of our business with the auto industry. We can't continue to do that. We need to diversify our business. We're doing about $1 million a year in defense. We think we have great opportunities in defense, we just don't know how to get there. A year later, after we worked with them for several months, did some things I don't have time to go into. But a year later, he called me up. He said, Ken, I thought I'd call you and give you an update on what happened this past year after you guys came in, brought us to the military, brought the military out to our business, and so on. He said, we did $10 million this year in military work. Yeah, from $1 million. So all they needed was the opportunity for the Army to see him, to get exposure to this. It's a great engineering company. Product lifecycle management. I didn't even know what that was, and I'm not sure. I'm probably left-handed when it comes to technology. Everybody on my staff is better at technology than I am, so I just try to get out of their way. But the bottom line is, about a year and a half ago, a fellow named Rick Darter, who owns Rave Computers, they make military-type computers, came in. He said, we got a problem. You guys got to help out. And I said, what is it? He said, we can't find workers that are capable of making modeling, simulation, visualization, high-end technologies, really high-end. And this area requires that we have that workforce. And I'm afraid they're going to leave. They don't get that talent. So we called a meeting. We put 30 companies in our atrium and sat down, and they're involved in product lifecycle management, modeling, simulation, and so on. We said, is this true? You have this employment problem? They said, absolutely. One guy said, I could hire 25 today. Another one said 30, and the other guy said, I'm going to leave. If I can't find them, there's a Central Florida university that has a focus on these types of graduates. I'm moving down there. Well, that did it. I got our attention. We went we started working with the MEDC, said we want to build a center. Something has to be done. And so we created this center, and our goal is to, we worked with Siemens. We went to Siemens and said, it costs too much for this technology for small to mid-sized companies. It costs $300,000 in some cases to buy this software so a worker could learn how to do modeling and simulation. We said, you got to drop that price for companies. After about 6-8 months, they agreed. There are some others that have agreed. And so we're going to offer discounted training for Automation Alley members and 3D printing. We're going to show them examples of 3D printing. We're not going to compete with our members that do 3D printing, but say, look, to our companies, you ought to get on board on 3D printing. Yesterday in the Free Press was a story that just about knocked me off my socks. Now 3D printing starts with this flat surface, and then behind it there's a head that's heated, and the supplies come through, like I said, plastic, comes through a tube into this heated area on this head, and there's a printer on the bottom of it, and then you plug in a program, and it starts to create out of nothing this product that's in this program. Right now in Knoxville, Tennessee, the Oak Ridge Lab for the Army, under contract with a private company, is making a car. That's what I said. Wow. And so they're talking about someday, you and I, that's not now, but someday, we might pick up the phone and say, you know what, I like that car of yours, but I want it in green, and I want leather seats, and I want it to whistle when I stop. Somebody's going to make that car someday off a 3D machine, if you can imagine. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine, but believe me, they're working on it right now. So the future in technology is exciting, and we're closely working, I should say right now, with the state, the MEDC, with their cars are, Nigel Francis. The state's got to focus on the auto industry. Their intent is to maintain our status as the world leader in technology for the auto-related business community. And we're going to be helping them. There will be some things announced, we think, in the coming months that will show that we're working right with them to do that. So, we'd like to work with Southfield. We propose a foundation level membership for your investment. That puts you in the top ranking with all of our companies and where I think you would deserve to be. An annual full page ad in Exology magazine, that's worth $5,000. share your marketing materials with incoming businesses at our International Business Center. What I can't do is, I want to be clear, steer somebody. Business isn't going to go where I tell them to go. But business will be, Southfield will be exposed to those companies coming in our center right away. And, of course, press release and event programs and postings. We'd like to bring our programs here to your business community, a more direct way than maybe in the past. And by direct way, I mean holding an entrepreneurial program here, where we can invite, by working with your economic development team, target in with your companies in this area, invite them to a seminar, expose them to what we're doing, and tell them that we can invest our dollars in their businesses. And also take your companies, although others have been, promoting here our international trade missions for them to attend. And then, of course, opening up our defense and manufacturing work, and talked about the opportunity maybe to bring some of our incubator and business accelerator programs here to Southfield. So I'm going to out-talk myself, so I better slow up. Anybody have any questions for me?
See if there are any questions. Council? Mr. Lance.
Okay. I see a tremendous opportunity for the city of Southfield for your presentation. I know we have the people who are eligible to be in the front of all our duties with you. And how do we get started with you to do that?
Your economic development team, who we think we could be great partners with.
So actually, the city has been a member since Automation Alley was formed, and myself, as well as people from our Career Center, have been active in many committees over the years. In the last several years, actually, Automation Alley has hosted at our Eat to the Beat a private picnic. They've come and had events here in the past. And so we're looking to expand all of those activities and do a little bit more detail.
We've had a relationship. Actually, in the early days, our planning was done right here in Southfield. So from our first conversations about Automation Alley, they were headed up right here in Southfield.
Well, so the next step is to find out from the president and the council the first steps we have to take to get involved.
Well, we would like to meet with Automation Alley to expand our discussions about this 5-year extension. We have some exploratory meetings set up for the end of this week, so we'd like to continue to do that and then to build this relationship a little bit more, and we have to then submit the paperwork to the state of Michigan. So that's what we're looking forward to.
So that's the answer. Do we need a vote on this? Do we consensus?
We're going to do a consensus, and we'll come back on Monday. Mr. Zorn, you want to...
That was it, just what you said.
Okay, Mr. Perkins.
Yeah. Hi, Ken, thanks for being here.
And I see you, sir.
I had a lengthy discussion at a finance meeting, and I guess, having been involved in this since 1983,
Right.
I have questions as to where we headed as far as Automation Alley and where does Smart Zone go. The reason I bring that up is because Automation Alley was really started way back in '83 with the first task force by Dan Murphy and Joe Yacom, and we were trying to figure out why everybody was leaving Oakland County and going down south, and we tried to figure a way doing a task force to keep businesses in Oakland County. Now, we had an opportunity when we started to have smart zones. There was 10 of them, and I went to Governor Engler and added one. And as you remember, because you were part of it, we wanted to add one to the 10, so they had 11 smart zones. And we had LTU involved, and city and LTU are the ones that partnered, and we went to the state. They said, you have to become regional, so we got a hold of Brooks, and we said, well, we'll have automation Southfield, or Southfield automation, whatever. And that's the way that it had been. And of course, Michigan Economic Development, stated what the Smart Zone was supposed to do was to bring high-tech workers into the state and bring them into the Smart Zone areas that have been competitive with each other, and others that were not a part of the Smart Zone to bring businesses into our city. And so it was that having the Smart Zone designation was a real big thing in bringing businesses to Southfield. And what it really meant was that when Michigan was given a company that was seeking a location, one of the 11 would be talked to and stated whether or not they were willing to give tax abatement to those to bring them in to your community. And then council, back I think in 2008, expanded the Smart Zone to Troy. And I guess I was really upset with that because Smart Zone and LTU is the one who started Smart Zone and got that 1/11 of the business coming to our city. And it wasn't located near LTU, and it wasn't here in Southfield. It was in Troy. And I just couldn't understand the thinking in that, because we at South End, Oakland County, are having the worst time in attracting businesses than Auburn Hills, which was given tax abatement from early on, and the northern parts of the county. So then they had other, sources. They put together the Suburban Alliance and all that, supposed to do the same thing, attract businesses and help the cities out there to attract business to their community. So really what happened was that, as I see it, everything got diluted. And even by the map that you have now, we're not looking at Oakland County as we first intended to grow as a part of Oakland County, and Southfield would try to lead the way, which we did, because now there's other counties. And now they were getting beat up by Detroit because they're giving this additional dollars to take our businesses away from us, like Blue Cross Blue Shield. And because we got 30 million square feet of office space, and they got office space that's empty, we're getting hit. And we don't have the means to compete in that marketplace when they throw all the dollars at the commercial buildings, the restaurants, and the grocery stores, and all those things related. And so, when you come into these cities and see Automation Alley, and I appreciate what you guys are doing, but when you're in competition, like I just lost Panasonic to Farmington Hills. Don't look at me like that.
I want to have help.
And I mean, the competition is great. There's only so many companies looking to the states to locate, and where do they go in the state? Must have the livable or sustainable communities in order to locate. So how do you? I guess the question is, how do you steer or approach a company to a city, as Smart Zone did, when you are diluting everything to a widespread authority, so to speak? And then what is the state's role as you become the persons and group to bring businesses into the state? What is the state's role? And they're tied up with you, but how do we then get them to continue to work with us? Because as I understand it, we're lopped off at the head if we don't get into the Automation Alley program. And then Smart Zone is meaningless. LTU is meaningless. You talked about training and 3D. I'm very familiar with that. How come they earn funds and grants to LTU, who's a tech university, to send students there to be trained in those particular needs of the companies that are looking for technology students? So there's a whole ball of things that are coming at you, but like I said, competition is fierce.
let me just,
Yeah.
say, first of all, you're right about LTU, it's a great university, and a very technical one, and, you should be proud that it's here. We're proud to associate with LTU, period. I'm gonna go back, Don, you and I go back a long way.
Yeah.
I helped design Automation Alley. I laid the groundwork for what it was gonna be. You called me one day, and you said to me, I need to see you. We've been bypassed in Southfield. I said, what about? And you said, the MEDC made a promise to me. And they made a promise to include us in the Smart Zone competition and come back and see us before the awards were made for Smart Zones in Michigan. And they've made the awards, and they've left Southfield out. I went to see you, and you showed me a letter from the MEDC stating that they would be back to Southfield to visit before they made an award. You asked me what could I do about it. I went to see Doug Rothwell, who was the head of the MEDC at that time. And I asked Doug Rothwell, I showed him the letter, and said, this isn't right. You made this promise to Southfield, and you didn't come back and give them a fair shot at one of these 10. You and I went to a meeting out in Novi with Doug Rothwell, LTU representatives, and myself, and you and I. And at that meeting, Doug Rothwell agreed, didn't like it, but he agreed that we had 3 days to write an application to be an 11th Smart Zone, but he said the funding's already committed to the 10. You'll have to get in line somewhere down the road if we can pull it off. After that, there were discussions about Automation Alley locating on the LTU grounds at 10 Mile and the service drive. LTU talked about giving us that corner. Southfield said at the time, our LDF aid funds are not going towards it. We're going to take it on the exchange, the highway exchange, interchange, and so a conversation was then held with Troy, who said, we'll take our LDF aid dollars and help you locate there. That's my recollection of what happened in 83, or excuse me, actually 93.
What year did that take place?
The,
2003.
Oh, I'm sorry?
What year did that happen?
Well, Automation Alley was founded in 93, or 90, excuse me, in 99. And I'm going to say about 4 years after that, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's when we started capturing the money.
and if I could just interject. Just keep going, because I'm gonna lose my thought somewhere in there. What happened to the Great Lakes interchange?
I really don't know. I was not involved in that, Mark.
Well,
I can refresh you on that. So the city of Southfield, Automation Alley was going in full strength, and at the time, Rochester Hills and OU and Lawrence Tech, we wanted to try and do some extra branding to create some other sense of place and some other kind of thing for technology outside of Automation Alley. And there was an effort to try and bring some other resources together. And it was right when I started working here, so I think it was around 2005. And so it really never took off the way they had anticipated. And I believe shortly after, Rochester Hills and Oakland University separated and formed the incubator and kind of separated from the whole system. So that was all like a...
And in their presentation, they say Great Lakes Interchange and Oakland Automation Alley Smart Zone.
Right. It was a subset of Automation Alley Smart Zone. And it was a branding effort that we tried to come up with many years ago, and it just didn't take off. I guess I'm trying to follow this thing through the periods of the task force back in '83, and where everything was to make Oakland County the prize to anybody who wants to come in with a tech company, bring your business, doors are open.
Sure.
And everything was thrust in that way. We were the ones who stopped the companies from going down south. And we brought Joe was with Dan Merkley, or Joe Champagne up to Oakland University from down south, where he was stealing all the businesses, and now he's on the board at LTU. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is that I don't mind, automation is always great, and you know I know that. But I'm trying to seek an edge for this city that I can compete and maintain what I have and even go beyond what I have. And today, I feel getting pinched by all the other communities who are now being competitive and given whatever grants and abatements, and now Detroit comes along. And I guess that is really set me apart from all these other organizations, because where were they when they started stealing from us? And we have been hit heavy in our business address, so to speak. And I just want to know, if we participate, how are you going to make us at least equally competitive, or we have an opportunity to go beyond what anybody else does to compete?
We can give you the opportunity to do that. And by that I mean, I mentioned bringing some of our programming here. I mentioned holding an entrepreneurial class here. I mentioned a more direct involvement with someone exposing your community more directly to our exporting program that's worked and brought back nearly $400 million in direct investment here. Bringing our activities and programming here. But you don't get successful by standing on the sideline. I mean, what I'm saying is, here's an opportunity to get more and put the other foot in. I mean, if we need to be competitive, we need to put our best foot forward. Use all the tools we can economically to move ourselves forward. This is one of those tools. Are we the answer to all the woes? No. Are we a tool to use? Absolutely, for change. We've proven that. We're 15 years old in this business now. We're not a Johnny-come-lately now. We've been around the world. And I'm saying we're that tool locally for our communities to use. That's what I'm saying, and that's why I'm here, Doc.
Yeah, well, Southfield's been around the world too. You know, we bought the composite bridge here from Japan. I mean, we want to compete, Ken, and we want the county to help us compete, and as well as the state of Michigan. And when more of this is diluted, where somebody comes to Southfield and takes a major quadrant out of our city and moves it to Detroit and leaves me bare, you know, and it's been on the market. How long is American Blue Cross been on the market? 3 years. 3 years. We have this big, beautiful place with an interchange. We don't seem to get any help in saying, hey, we got to help Southfield fill some of that office space.
Well, I can do
and things like that. But I mean, I don't know how to cement that, Ken. I know it can happen. What is the mechanism to make that happen where we have a prized piece of land? It's probably location-wise the best in the state of Michigan as far as its location. And here it sits for 3 years dormant,
Try to broaden
I got another 14 acres sitting at an exit off of Lasher Road. 14 acres dormant. And I say, how do I get that? Do you have marketing, put you in the magazine, this and that? We're in that couple magazines now. We even have, $5,000? How much do we pay on more trim, Terry?
About $3,000 a month.
How much?
About $3,000 a month.
About $3,000 a month. We got $500,000 set aside this year's budget for marketing. So we know we have to compete, and we're putting our dollars there. And I know $50,000 you're asking is proper to ask for. It's proper for us to stay involved. But I just want to make sure that we in Southfield get our fair share of what's on the table. And I just don't see how any of these other things have really worked out.
Well, I've introduced on this presentation today just some examples of companies that are benefiting right now, that are retraining their workforce right now. How important is that for these companies to be competitive in the future, to have the workforce they require? I mean, that's a big deal for these companies. Go ask any of them.
But I hear about Oakland University tonight, so I'm deaf. All right? What you guys are doing at Oakland University. It's all that north side, north end of the city. You know, we had 8 Mile Road Boulevard Association, all of a sudden you guys kind of backed out and gave it and stopped having, you know, that become a major part, you went Woodward Avenue. Simcoe today does not have I-696 as a major artery. They have Woodward Avenue. They have Michigan Avenue going to Ann Arbor. And I'm saying is, have everything coming northwest. You're in planning, and you know everything goes northwest in this world. Everything. That's why Livingston County is growing.
I'm saying one of the best business addresses in Michigan is here in Southfield. I am saying that. And that's why Southfield got built.
I want to keep it that way. And that's what I want to keep it that way.
And we'll do our share, Don,
Yeah.
according to our programs and policies, but I can't guarantee you I'm going to move a piece of property.
When there is a company that is looking for a location, all I ask is that we get equal time with them to tell them our story and offer them whatever assistance we can give them. That's what I mean by equality.
When I started, when Brooks put me in charge of Automation Alley, I went to see, there were 2 things you need to know. One is that Oakland County did a survey, and we had like 167,000 tech workers in Oakland County. And that was the story we started with Automation Alley. The goal was to take it regional. And the reason for that is that we had 300 and some thousand tech workers, and the region could compete nationally at that point. It was a better story to tell. It was a better way to focus attention. So what I'm saying is that when I went to see the leadership, the political leadership, they all asked me one question: how am I going to know that we're going to get a fair shake from Oakland County from being involved in Automation Alley? And I said, the only reason you'll know is by what we do, not by what we say. Everybody told me 15 years ago it was impossible to build a regional association in Michigan. They don't work. I heard that everywhere. Well, it's 15 years later. We've lost no political entities. We're now up to about 50 educational institutions in the region from K-12 to higher ed. We made it. And we made it because we kept our word. And I think that's been the critical thing. If we would have broken our word, I don't think I'd be standing here.
But little things like, you know, you talk region, you know, there's no reason why VDOT stops at Northland and our people out here can't get workers to work because there's no transportation. You know, you stood at that depot down there for 2.5 hours waiting for the smart bus to pick you up to make the route before you can get people into work. And you know, in Oakland County up there, they stopped that way back when. And those are the kinds of things that have to be explored, because without employees being able to get to work, businesses aren't going to come. And we find that everywhere. That's why we don't have restaurants. It's because a restaurateur, and I was one, right here at 10 miles.
I waited tables in your restaurant.
I used to pick them up with a jitney. With Golden Mushroom and McDee's, and we all used to distribute our workers and pick them up at Northland because there's no transportation. But when you're talking about regional, you know, transportation's got to be part of a region, a plan. And just like I fight with SEMCOG, how can you not find, you know, Northwestern and I-696, a major corridor? Oh, but we're going to put our money in Woodward, you know? And I'm saying is, but listen, you got Wayne State, you got Orange Tech, Northland, this city center, 12 Oaks Mall. At the end, you've got the 12 Oaks Mall. And they don't find that a major corridor. Try to get it to Howell at rush time, you know, 2.5 hours. All I'm saying is that I feel very strongly we're getting outvoted in certain places, and that's really what I'm hot about. We do not even have a voting member on SEMCOG. I got knocked off of that just the other day. All right, and that's what really disturbs me. We pay the SEMCOG. I brought all these people into SEMCOG. We do not have a voting member on SEMCOG.
Well,
and that's the kind of thing that really gets me. And I'm saying is we have to start doing battle like we used to. We used to not taking anything from anybody and go out and do our own thing. You know?
There are a lot of things on your mind and a lot of things that bother you.
That's right. And you're going to hear them.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm not complaining. What I am saying, though, is out of that circle of bundle of things, we're a part of that, not all of it. And all I can do is take our input and our piece of that puzzle and try to get input to you.
Okay, I'll just end up by saying I am for this because I believe in regionalism, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we get our fair share of the exposure.
I'll do my best to do that.
Yeah, I share with Don's concerns, but I just have a few questions for you in specific. Last year I was chair of our Economic Development Committee here in Southfield, and one of the things we talked about is examining how Ann Arbor Spark operates and what can we do here locally to form a public-private corporation. Automation Alley does extend into Washtenaw County. How does Automation Alley interact with those local public-private corporations to partner, to plug in? Spark, Techtown, if we wanted to start something in Southfield that really did focus just on Southfield, still part of this regionalism approach, but made sure that Southfield had an edge or had a specific message, how would Automation Alley fuse into that?
The first thing you should do if you're thinking of doing that is look at the budgets for Spark, or for Techtown and for Automation Alley and for Ann Arbor Spark and see what it costs to start with. That's number one. Number two, we're different than one another. Ann Arbor Spark has a different focus than we do. Techtown has a different focus. So we formed an organization called BANSA, the Business Association of Southeast Michigan, for accelerators. Each of us doing our own thing differently. There's no one on those other ones that do export. There's none of the others that get involved in defense work. There's no one that gets involved in PLN. So there's a different focus. We're more market-driven. We're more driven by the customer and responding in the areas that relate to our business. So we formed this partnership, and it's working. It's now 3-4 years old. I was the first president of that organization for the first 2 years. That's kind of how we do it.
Yeah, because that's my curiosity. Because like Don says, there's a lot of opportunity to join a regionalism approach, but there also can't be a missed opportunity to give Southfield an edge. I would like to continue to explore finding some sort of public-private corporation that we could start up here in Southfield with some key players across the street, key players in the city, and partner with Bantam and keep the region moving forward with giving Southfield some sort of edge in that arena.
Yes, you said that there were 15 of these technology centers around the country.
Yes, sir.
And we're probably right in the middle.
Not in the middle.
If I were to go to the administrative heads of these 15, how many would know what Automation Alley is?
Well, we're 15 years old. All the others, Silicon Valley is about 40. The Pittsburgh Technology Council is probably 35, 37 years old. They're all older than we are. Yet I would think that in most of those areas you would find that they are aware of us. And secondly, you'd also find out that Ms. Maureen Krause and Irene Spanos from Oakland County Economic Development says that when she goes in rooms around the world, they're now hearing about Automation Alley from these countries she's visited. So not only here locally, domestically, but also internationally.
The reason I asked the question is, and thank you for the answer, but the reason I asked the question is, if we're going to grow, if we're going to be really successful, if we're going to move from the middle of the pack to the lead of the pack, we've got to be a threat to some of those that are in front of us. And they have to know who we are. And so if we walk into the room and say we're from Automation Alley, they ought to pay really close attention to us because they know that we mean business. And are we that effective bringing businesses into our exports in or imports or exporting things to that these other ones know that much about who we are?
We're almost at $500 million in export dollars for companies in Southeast Michigan. That's success.
Okay, $500 million compared to
other areas that do very little in exporting, as an example. So what I would say is that would we walk in and get recognition? The answer is yes.
Okay.
And building a brand doesn't come overnight.
Right.
And so 15 years in the field and doing this work, I'd say anywhere in the United States in a major tech center, they would know who Automation Alley is and that we're a player.
Right. Okay. Comparing it, and have to use a sports analogy, but, you know, when I was playing football, there were certain teams that we knew when we were playing them that, we had to prepare differently than for other teams. And some of them we just sent our uniforms because we knew that. That was the best we could do. Yeah, so we didn't get, beat up on it. I want us to be in a position that the other folks that are ahead of us know we're in the room and respect us for being there, because we may be stealing people from them. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Well, when I mentioned our international center that distracted, 15, 20 companies here already, and several are in there now.
Yeah.
Those companies could go anywhere in the United States.
Sure.
So, they're here.
Right.
So are we able to compete? I'd say, yeah. That's a battle, though, that never ends. I've been involved in government, county government, for 20 years. That battle never ends.
Right.
It goes on every day. And the bad part about it is, it's not just technology centers. There are governors coming to Michigan from other states on a regular basis that are on a tech hub, trying to drag our businesses out of here because we've got them.
Right.
So our goal is to first sustain the business we have and then grow it. And that's what we're about. And we want to work with our economic development partners in the region to do that.
Thank you. Next question is, are we in a business of helping, let's say, a Southfield, which is was a recent issue. It's resolved now, but a company that's already established that wants to move and maybe move out of the region, does Automation Alley help Southfield work with that company to find a place, make sure they stay in this region, or even though they can move any place?
Sure. If we could help you build the business case to keep them here, the answer is yes.
Okay.
That would come basically from your economic development team that would say, you know what, we're building a case. What can you guys add to that case? We would be right there. Guarantee that.
Okay. Also, does Automation Alley work with not only technology, but with complementary type businesses? For instance, we've got a couple of hotels here that have been sitting empty for a long time. You bring businesses in, they need hotel space for people that are traveling to their business and stuff. So that, I consider that a complementary type business. Is Automation Alley involved with that kind of thing, or
if the customer asked us to, but I would say most of the time, they're people that, they're site people coming in, pretty well know what they want to do in terms of where they want to stay, but if they want a list, we give them a list.
Okay. And the last question that I have is, when all is said and done, how do we measure the success of being involved in Automation Alley?
It would be the relationship we establish, as Michelle was saying earlier, that we need to sit down, firm up the area of agreement so that it's well understood. We believe the devil's always in the detail.
Sure.
And if we understand the detail both sides, then you've got the benchmarks to judge us by going forward. And we're not afraid to do that.
Okay. All right.
In fact, anxious to.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Everything everybody says is correct, but we must have a different mindset than we've had 4, 5, 6 years ago, when we let everything go and everything was fine. We did nothing to help ourselves. So, again, I say, you have a consensus, get the appropriate vote from the council, and then use the experienced people that we have to help us, all of us, to go to him. He's the leader now. But we have to get started. After this meeting, we have to get started.
Mr. Rogers, I want to thank you for coming. I think it's been long overdue. And I appreciate some of the information because we haven't gotten that much feedback as to where our membership, how it's benefiting the city of Southfield. I'm glad to see companies like the Cure 24, which are, it's an outstanding company that we have supported and took vacant office space in the center of town, is involved. I would agree with Mr. Percotti. We don't want to be forgotten or passed over, and I think that's a message that we're giving you directly today, that we have the space, we have the location, we have the fiber network with a lot of advantages to offer. And we do have a number of very good tech firms here already, so that's a testament to our desirability. And I think it just goes without saying, we need to continue this relationship. We'd be foolish not to. So I certainly am in support of it as well.
Thank you for your comments, sir. I agree with you.
Mayor Lawrence?
Yes, I just wanted to say that Automation Alley has come a long way, and I want to compliment you on your leadership. But I also want to say that there should be some benchmarks, and I think that should be very clear, and it sounds like it's going to be on yours and Shelley's desk to do that, because what does the involvement and support, because it's all about what does it do for us. We understand regionalism, at the end of the day, it's how is Southfield benefiting from it, and making sure that I want to know specifically, how do we take the concept of Automation Alley and give Southfield a voice? So maybe you get the people at the table, but how do we have that one-on-one? How do we get to sell our story? How do we get to tell our story? And maybe it's because I know you're selling the region, and our membership, we only have X amount of dollars. And so it must be a benefit for us to tell the Southfield story. All those things that you've heard. And so that's the concern. Are we telling a region story? We're paying for you to tell a region story. How do we get to tell the Southfield story? And that's the benchmark that I'm looking for.
And we'll make sure that all of the concerns are included in this.
Yeah, just one last comment about that. I would, and we were going to be talking about this as we go forward, but your marketing materials. How to count this as an Automation Alley city. Branding it for its excellence in technology. That's part of, I think, one of the advantages that ties you with a technical nature, a technical name around the country and around the world.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I think for a long time, we in the council and the leadership of our staff have felt that we were being exploited, we were being used, but we weren't getting any benefits. And that's kind of maybe paranoia, but maybe not. But we've often felt that we were being used, but not getting benefits. So I love hearing your history. The fact that you know this so well, it's given me a sense of confidence that I didn't have before. But it's very important to us that we are treated like equals with the others in this country. Because we have felt so often that we were, like I said, being used, being passed over. And we do a lot to attract businesses. We need to do more, maybe we need to do it differently. And I like what you said about incorporating this, and we do need to do this right away. So I want to thank you for your presentation, because it's given me a different sense. I felt it was something we needed to do, but it was one of these things like, yeah, but, so.
You have that perception, that's my fault. No, let me finish. If you have that perception, that's my fault, because that's not what has been happening. We have been working with your company. We have taken them on trade missions. We have done other things. That just didn't get to you, and that's my fault. And I'll make sure that, I think part of what you're saying to me is, tune us in. Keep us informed. And I'm hearing you. I mean, I understand that, and I'll do a better job of that.
And we have all often felt that people want to go to Troy, they don't want to come to Southfield, but a lot of people do want to come to Southfield.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we are the business center of Southfield, and we want to maintain that, so I appreciate your presentation. Nice meeting you, by the way.
Nice to meet you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
And I have one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Since you've been the head of Automation Alley,
usually come through our International Business Center. 9 times out of 10, they have a site person that's been involved. They come to the area, they've got some idea where they want to go. So I'm saying that some of that's already been predetermined by these companies in terms of where their customers are at, how close the customer feels they need to be located to them. There are just different factors that go in. So I would say probably out of the majority of the time, probably 10, 15%, maybe 20. But most of the time, it's customer driven, it's location driven by a customer. They need the proximity to get there. So, and some of them come in with site selectors that are already been hired.
Mr. Lawrence, on that.
This is a big move for them.
Ken, what is your total budget?
Ours, about $5 million.
$5 million. And I just wanted to put this in perspective. We're proposing, we're asking council to allow staff to continue the 5-year extension of the joint LDFA. And Troy is pretty much putting in, they're about, looks like about $80,000 a year. They're putting in pretty much the majority of their increment capital rent.
Right.
Southfield, when the LDFA, that increment entity was created, we decided to fund American Drive and that road. We've roughly got about just under $250,000. If the 5-year extension is granted, we'll be taking 10% out for administration to cover our other economic development costs. That's money that can pay for staff and training and accounting costs. $50,000 a year this would be a 5-year commitment of $50,000. We'll continue to hammer out those details for council. And then on the 21st, we will have the road numbers for the 11 mile. The action will also include allowing us to spend part of that $1.5 million fund balance in the LDFA for that. Another focus within the document that we've written is we do want to create a greater brand identity for America Drive, the Blue Cross Blue Shield building. We may be working on an increment of $250,000. We have a tremendous potential in the next few years to grow that. And as we hit with the federal mogul, the Blue Cross Blue Shield building was previously on the tax rolls for 0, and you're going to see large increases for that increment. So this is an opportunity to really take an in-depth look at this west part of our city. It's a substantial amount of acreage, a lot of it developed, a lot of it not developed. This is a great growth opportunity for the city. Strengthening our position with Automation Alley. We've talked about at this table about doing more with LTU, a memorandum of understanding, strengthening our town-gown relationship. We've done the joint venture with one of their students where both parties are putting in $20,000 a year to be more focused on placemaking and events. I think as this evolves, we may be able to do more things along the lines with the incubation center, the acceleration center, and even further our own marketing efforts as a subset within this LDFA. Final comment on my part, later in the year, there will be a dialogue about a 15-year extension, and we are in the preliminary process. Shelley, this 5-year is a competitive process as well.
Yes, it's
So that's the other thing.
Yeah.
For us to go in with a strong message, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, with an entity that's created such an identity, that we're going to strengthen our relationship, it strengthens our application to keep this increment authority going.
All right, so without any opposition, it will move to the July 21st petition. Thank you very much, Mr. Rogers.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for
Thank
having
you.
us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Ballot Proposal 1 presentation. We're going to ask for a brief presentation from Ms. Samantha Harkins. And I also see that our lobbyist is here as well.
I know, you got Sam would be prettier.
I'm here, so I can't.
This is the presentation on behalf of the Michigan.
No,
We did a paper. We're going to ask for a brief presentation.
This might be best, and actually I was gonna defer a little bit, if you don't mind, to our representative here, who I know is very helpful on this. We talked a little bit before the meeting and thought we'd work together on this, that's okay.
I'm Vicki Barnett, who serves in the legislature, many of you know me, as the vice chair, the ranking member on the Democratic side of the Tax Policy Committee. And these PPT replacement bills moved through tax policy twice, actually. The first time they moved through, there was not sufficient replacement dollars. The second time, I believe it was the second time they moved through, the replacement dollars were put in place, and there was a mechanism created to fully replace the revenues lost by local communities. There's a ballot question on the ballot which is extremely confusing to people. And in part that's because the legislature chose to change election law so they could write the ballot proposal language instead of letting the Secretary of State's office do it. But be that as it may, I will try to describe what is going on and why you're being asked to vote on something on the August ballot. The personal property tax has been an onerous tax on many of our large manufacturing businesses and has been making it difficult for them to replace their current equipment and modernize it because of the tax liability created by the personal property tax. So they wanted to get rid of this tax for a long time. They managed to get a synergy of elected officials and the governor all on board to get rid of the personal property tax. The governor changed the tax code to eliminate most deductions and to eliminate incentives to corporations to have them come to Michigan. So there are a long list of about $800 million of expiring tax credits that used to be taken by businesses that have been accounted for in our state budget that will be expiring over the next few years. And that $800 million, as it grows, is part of the money that is going to go into the personal property tax replacement pool to keep local school districts and local communities whole in the replacement. There's a second part that would allow the state to, well, would allow the Local Stability Authority to assess businesses for an emergency services special assessment tax. Essential services special assessment tax, thank you. And that essential services special assessment tax would be to provide and enhance police, fire, courts, and corrections? And EMS services. Well, police, fire, yeah. And the way that the legislature decided to create this replacement body that's going to replace this money, it doesn't come through Treasury. The fear on the part of the Michigan Municipal League and the school community was that if it was relied on an annual appropriation, like statutory revenue sharing, where you've lost $6 billion in local funds over the last few years, that if we instead put it in a protected area where it wasn't subject to appropriations on an annual basis, there would be less risk of anybody monkeying with your money. As former president of the Michigan Municipal League and a former mayor, I can tell you that's always been my concern. So what was created was an authority, the Local Stability Authority, which is a statewide authority. It matches the boundaries of the state of Michigan. This authority is a local governmental entity. And all the citizens of the state of Michigan live in this authority. And since the authority is a local government entity, which will be taking in the replacement dollars, under the Headley Amendment, and correct me if I'm wrong, under the Headley Amendment, local governments have to put up a vote to the people to assess any increases or new taxes. The ballot proposal assesses a transfer of use taxes to the authority, making it a collectible tax by the authority and not the state. Therefore, in order to move this money that's already collected in the use tax pile at the Department of Treasury of the state of Michigan, we have to have it collected by the authority so it's in the replacement pool. That is why you have to vote on it as local members of this statewide local government authority. Now, is that simple?
No.
Simple as you can get. So, There's no new taxes here. We're not raising taxes at all. We're moving use tax money that's already collected to a new form of local government, which is the authority, which will be housed in the executive branch of government.
Okay, we have a few questions.
I bet you do.
And we're going to keep this conversation brief. Mr. Long.
Yeah. So, when this was originally proposed as a strict repeal, Jim Charette calculated that this would be a $9 million hit to our annual budget. And so at some point last year, Jim and Mayor Lawrence and myself sat down with Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley, because we're a city that is 2/3 business, tax-based. And so for a city like ours, which isn't necessarily just a bedroom community, it's a huge dent in our annual budget. And so then this complicated way of funding the replacement came forward. And so I really do have two questions, because I've been vocally in support of this for two reasons. Number one, though, we need some sort of sense of, you know, this money that is being used as the replacement for money that we depended on as a city is guaranteed. What's your assessment of that? Is that money absolutely going to replace?
Well, there's no absolutely guarantee. So it's predicated on the idea that they collect enough use tax. All of the projections would indicate that that should comfortably happen. Now, if something happened where they don't collect those use taxes, then in theory you could do that. It's prioritized. I think debt, in the hand that I gave you, that the order of in which they'll be reimbursed. Debt loss is first, essential services is a police fire thing, and then all other, small taxpayer exemption loss, and then everything else. So it is prioritized should that come to pass. Based on every projection I've seen, we think the number, we're confident that that number should replace.
And by the way, Tony's treasurer of the Michigan Municipal.
The idea is that, and that loss is based on your 12/31/2012. So when they talk about keeping you whole, it's what you had as of that date. Okay, so there's confusion in that because people look at where they are today and it's might be something different. So that's the number when they talk about keeping you whole.
The second comment I have is something that Mr. Fracassi brings up, and I totally agree with him. You know, this is a community that collects a lot of personal property tax to fund items in City Hall that go right back to the residents. It is the tax that we use to grant tax abatement, so it's helping us keep competitive and attracting businesses. So we're just inclined to keep the personal property tax as is and call it a day. My biggest concern is if you vote no on this ballot proposal, which just keeps the personal property tax, then all of the year and a half, 2 years of negotiation to find that replacement goes out the window, and then they go back to their original plan. Well, then let's just repeal it without a replacement, and then we're back to the $9 million hole. What is your sense that, let's say there's a no vote on this, what's going to happen with the personal property tax?
I can't deal in hypothetical.
Yeah, I can.
You are. I mean, there's nothing hypothetical.
I want to correct a little bit about the use tax. The theory, the reason why we're projecting that the use tax will be enough is because it's a fixed dollar amount that is in the proposal that will move the tax dollars. If it's not sufficient, I'm sure there will be a hue and cry to have a supplemental transfer from the use tax fund to make it whole. Okay, so I want to make that very clear. And then there's a will to do that. This has been a project that originally started on one side of the aisle and went through a lot of conversation and open dialogue to get the changes in that made the MEA, the school community, the local governmental communities very comfortable as they're going to be, sitting in a squishy wet chair, to make this happen. So, and don't put me on the squishy wet chair. So I'm confident that if it passes, everything that you want to happen will happen. I am concerned, like you are, with a lame duck legislature that is frustrated with the voters, and they have shown historically a willingness to be frustrated with voters and do things that may not be in the voters' interests. And I'll be honest in dealing with the emergency manager law, the public, it went on the ballot, the public voted no on the emergency manager law, and within 3 weeks, you had a new emergency manager law, which was very much like the old one, with an appropriation which became referendum-proof.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are voting out of fear, but because I've been in the discussions, the MML had a strong seat at the table. Samantha, unfortunately, she's not here. She was at that table. Most people know that I started out as a local government person not in favor of this at all, because of the exact fears you're talking about. Is it going to be enough? What happens if it's... And I'm confident that it's going to solve the problem. It will hurt your tax payments.
I'd like to just go and answer a little bit, because I also was part of that work group. This is that we really feel, the original proposal was you were going to get 100% of your essential services and 80% of everything else. And as Vicki pointed out, over months of negotiating and working hard, we were able to get that up to 100% of everything. There's no better deal to be struck. So we're only going to move backwards from here. Whether we go all the way to no replacement, some fraction of that, we're not going to improve upon the deal we have. The second thing that the reason the league is supporting of this is, my team's the second reason that we're really adamant about supporting this is it comes as close as we're going to get to that guaranteed revenue we talked about. These monies are coming to us outside of the appropriation process, which has been our Achilles heel with all the statutory revenue sharing and other things, is we have to always rely on that legislative appropriation. This takes us outside that. So it really got at two real key and core issues for us. And we're, as Vicki said, and as you alluded to, do we want to roll the dice and lame duck? Do we want to, not support this, have it go down in the hope that everyone says, oh, well, that's okay, and go about it? We don't think that's likely to happen.
So my last remark in closing on this is that, the residents have asked me, what am I doing on this? I'm voting for it because, step one of the process was repeal the personal property tax without a replacement. We're now at step, 300. 300 got us to where we have a replacement, there were negotiations, there were work sessions. My fear is, and it's not a great option to vote out of fear, but my fear is we vote if we vote no, keep the personal property tax. Not only does that take us back to step one, but step one was repeal the personal property tax without a replacement. Me, personally, I'm voting for it. Whether or not this council wants to endorse it, that's for discussion with my colleagues here, but those are my 2 cents, because I know that there are residents in the audience now that have asked me, when are we discussing this as a council, and I said at this meeting, whether or not we want to say something at the televised meeting for the rest of the residents, I would love to hear the discussion on that.
There was a question. I just want to address it because I also heard it this summer in some of the discussions and talking to some of the council members. It does include full replacement for all the other millages, including library millages, park and recreation millages, and the road millages.
Well, my question was going to be, what if it fails? So that's an answer, but I'm concerned about the promotion on this, especially given this is on the ballot in a primary. And if you look at the demographics of who votes in a primary, it tends to be, it's smaller, as you know. It tends to be skewed towards older people. And and I'm not saying older people don't understand anything, but
You're doing a great job
it's taxes, it's complicated. And usually when people, whether they're older or younger, do not understand a tax proposal, they vote no. That's I think, generally accepted reality. So here we have fewer people deciding. I just don't see the education on this. There was something in the free press that to me was a little convoluted as far as understanding it. And then I'll go where Jeremy has gone. I'm afraid of what would happen if it doesn't pass, given the history of what goes on in Lansing. So if we need to do more promotion, and now I guess I direct it towards the city administrator. If the council decides, I think something's got to come out of council. You know, collectively we decide that voting yes is our position, and I think we have to publicize that. Unfortunately, the absentee ballots are out and they're being returned. I think we're late on this, and that's why I brought it up last month. Honestly, I think this whole thing stinks.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Because you guys have both used the term fear a couple times. I think of it a little differently, if I could suggest. Is there a better deal to be negotiated? I think the answer is no. I mean, we literally were at the table for months, close to a year, in trying to get the best deal that we could. And I don't think there's an opportunity to move the needle any farther on doing that. There is an absolute desire to eliminate personal property tax. So there's no doubt in my mind that if this plan fails, there'll be a new plan, worse plan or whatever. My feeling is it will only be a worse plan. I don't think there's a better plan to negotiate, because any replacement, and believe me, I can't even begin to tell you how many iterations of ideas that were worked through and trying to figure out how do you replace this money. They're all complicated, they're all messy, and this is about as good as we got. In fact, it's far better than what was originally passed, which I thought was ripe for challenge and had about a million things wrong with it. So we could spend another hour talking about what didn't happen. But so that's, I think about it more strategically, I guess is my point, is do I think personal property tax will remain repealed, whether it's this iteration or a future one? Absolutely. I feel very strongly it's the case. And I don't think there's a better deal to be negotiated. So it's not a case where, you know, if you think about it, like you're not sending us back into negotiated deal, there is not a better deal. We got to 100%, which everyone thought was impossible a year ago. And that's where we are today. So I do think, you know, the league's supporting it for that reason. We had not provided our full support until we got that commitment for the thing. I would also say that, again, while it's not perfect, the administration did work, you know, to help get there. When we had ideas and as things came up, like debt law, some of the things Vicky was talking about, we worked, and it was a lot of different folks at the table to make it as right as we could. And so I think what you see today is the best that we're going to end up with.
And it had to be this authority that's outside of the appropriations process, so that you would have the comfort of knowing that the legislature wouldn't keep taking and changing the appropriations to local governments like they've done with statutory revenue sharing. That was one of the big concerns that those of us who support local governments and schools really had a problem with. And so leaving it in Treasury was not an option. Moving it out of the appropriations process to an authority that would control the distribution by a formula, which was also in the legislation. There's already a formula in the legislation, seemed to be the best of all worlds. And so what we've got is a great compromise proposal that businesses are in favor of, and local communities and school districts and libraries will be kept whole without the constitutional problems of the original set of bills. And the only problem we have here is a poorly worded ballot proposal that my colleagues insisted on writing, okay, and changed election law in order to be able to write it. So if we could have had the Secretary of State write it, it probably would have been a lot clearer without any opinions regarding the support for local small businesses in it. So the ballot language is bad, but the concept and the actual mechanism is a good one.
All right, so I agree with both of you, and I appreciate, you know, where you're coming from, and Vicki, what you did to help shape this. So it still goes back to who is promoting this. I mean, we can promote it locally, but we're just one community. Where is this being promoted across Michigan? Who's responsible for that?
There is a coalition that's doing it. They're doing a poor job, probably. I can't argue with that.
I'd say so, and I don't want to
Point fingers, but.
We're disappointed.
I'll point.
Yeah.
You're right, I mean, absentee ballots are out, and literature's not in people's hands yet, you know, I mean, if you know anything about running campaigns, and if you're sitting on this table, you do, then you realize that's not a good way to run a strategy. You're starting to see some of the media stuff now. I saw commercials over the weekend and other things. Hopefully it's not too little too late, and they still get over the hump on that, with that. But there has been a coalition put together who's raised money to fund this campaign, and I'm not at the table I'm not at, so I don't know exactly, I just know it exists, so I don't know exactly what they're doing in terms of what that's going to look like in terms of literature and media and radio and all that kind of stuff.
And for school districts and local governments, I know, you've got to hurry. For school districts and local governments, the real problem is you can't take a public position using taxpayer dollars. So the real beneficiaries of the compromise can't take a public position using taxpayer dollars. So that's where some of the problem comes in. So I, for my part, have been going to city council meetings where they're televised and talking to reporters to make sure that they understand that it sounds complicated, but it's really simple. You take the money in the right hand, give it to the left hand after the left hand votes to take it, and then you can distribute it out.
All right, Mr. Kazaki.
Yeah, I guess the question I want to know is, and I'll have Fred try to answer it, didn't we give $750,000 already?
And then the answer is in this current budget, we eliminated $750,000 our first cut. But as I read this, we're going to be made whole a year from now on that $750,000 we've taken out of the current year's budget.
How are we going to be made whole?
Through this ESA.
Yeah, if I could answer that real quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, the small partial exemptions, which you're referring to, which went into effect this year, the money did not exist in the state budget to make you whole in currently. So you're going to be made whole next year for this year and next year, you'll get that. So there'll be a lag in getting those monies, but that was one of the things we were able to negotiate, and that 100% reimbursement was that small parcel exemption, which originally was not going to be reimbursed.
Correct.
And I understand that in 15 and 16, that the state is going to be short of money. Is that accurate? So that
I think that their projections are less than they originally thought, but that's outside of this. Again, back to Vicky's, what Vicky was...
What constitutes the user tax? What is in the user tax that makes it so guaranteed?
Not that it's guaranteed, but the projections that the state are looking at, those dollars are not part of that projection. Because they're talking about their aggregate dollars coming into the state. These use tax dollars, it's a part of the sales tax for services and a couple other weird things.
The use tax.
Yeah, things that are used, I know you can't say services, but it's a specific component of, including internet purchases and things like that. Those are a pretty constant set of dollars that we've looked at. So it's not pie in the sky numbers in terms of...
When you lease equipment, when you lease a car, you pay a use tax on that. There's a sales tax at 6% and a use tax at 6%. A variety of entities pay into the use tax fund. The use tax is allocated to the general fund and to the school aid fund. 2 cents of the use tax goes to the school aid fund, the rest goes to general fund, mostly, more or less. On the sales tax side, which is not what we're talking about, as you know, 2 cents of the 6 cents goes to schools, 60% of the 4 cents goes to schools, and 15% of the 4 cents goes to constitutional revenue sharing. We're not touching that portion. So the use tax became the best tool to use, where we know and can anticipate how much money generally comes in, and use that to begin to fund along with the tax credits that are expiring. And we know how much those are because we know what we're not spending anymore, and that is moving into the replacement as well as the essential services money.
And I shouldn't say but. The key point in that is, in the past, I think what you're alluding to, let's pretend statutory revenue sharing game again, right? When the state's short, where do they look? They look to your money and take that. The whole idea of this vote and everything we're talking about is it protects those dollars from that part of the conversation. It might still come after statutory revenue sharing, but this money is going to be dedicated to that authority and outside the legislative appropriation process. That's what's so important about the vote, what we're trying to do.
Right, which is why you have to vote on it, because the state will no longer theoretically be collecting this amount of the use tax. The local stability authority, which is that local government that you're all a part of, will be collecting it. So it won't go into the state coffers, it will go into the local stability authority coffers.
Okay, now doesn't that school debt is not included in this, but what about the schools? But the way our schools get hammered with proposal aid, how do they get affected on this, new property tax, personal property tax?
Schools were
Yeah,
kept
are
whole as well.
replaced as well. The
Schools
school,
kept whole.
yes, the school fund is kept whole. And the locals are reimbursed as well. If there's a special millage for facilities or for
I thought
technology.
it listed just school debt.
Well, that would be the millages that you all
What is
voted
the Zoom?
for.
I think there's Zoom was in there, and school debt, and something else was,
It's all reimbursed.
CIA.
but we just had a meeting with the school board, and their treasurer was concerned about it, that's why I raised it.
Well, they
They
may have
may
the
not
same,
get
not
the
may,
full-
they would have the same issue you're having in this first.
I think it showed it when the state doesn't give the money, or 19 more mills in Farmington Hills.
Yeah, Tony,
Still
you
mad
said,
about Panasonic.
you said that, it's 100% of the tax that was capped at a certain date.
When they say that they're keeping you whole, it's as of 12/31/2012. So new businesses don't get added in, and existing businesses get phased out in terms of what they're gonna pay over a 10-year period.
So if we get a new business,
Personal property tax, they would not pay personal property tax.
it won't go into this authority?
No.
So, the worst possible thing is that, Automation Alley gives us brand new businesses, and we have to do police, fire, and all that, and we won't get any money to do that.
There's escalators built into it, but it's not a one-to-one. You're not gonna get credit for, if I put in 1 million square feet of a lot of personal property, that you won't benefit like you would.
So we're gonna start out at 100%, we're gonna go 99.
No, you're not gonna go down. There are escalators built into it, but
As
I'm
far as
saying.
dollars are concerned, the real dollars.
Well, don't forget, you still have the new millage dollars that are attached to the building proper,
We'd have those anyhow.
The real property.
if it's developed, yeah.
Yeah, we'd have those anyhow.
Right.
So the personal property tax
Typical
it
would be in
business,
addition
right.
to.
Typical business, like you were describing, 90% of it's in the personal property stuff, is what your point is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the answer is no, you would not get those dollars.
Of course,
It's not frozen. There are escalators built in as you get out a few years that will move it up, but it's not going to be in a one-to-one. You won't get that big positive hit when you attract a new business, other than the real property.
Right.
So, I just wanna make sure that we're not, having the wool pulled over our eyes again, that we think it's gonna be 100%, and we find out it's really not 100%.
It is 100%, but
Not,
it's.
but 100% yesterday.
Yes.
Exactly.
So,
And as we said, this is the best deal.
yeah, I understand that.
That's what I
It's a little
said.
cynical on it.
Now, as far as the literature that's coming in, I've had about 3 mailers come to me that, and all of them had, big AARP. So,
They're part of it.
yeah, the focus really is toward the residential people. They're trying to say, there's no tax increase, we're gonna make it good for businesses with no tax increase. So, it sounds like the literature is saying, you've been paying, you're not gonna get hurt with this tax. You're not gonna get hurt by voting yes. And my question is, what do the businesses say? Is it gonna make any difference in the taxes they pay? I know their loopholes are being closed.
So, if I'm a new business coming in with, so the Sherry just described, they will not pay this ESA assessment. If I was an existing business, I would pay that ESA, I think up to the threshold of what I used to pay in personal property taxes. Now, the business community, we talked about this secret table that people were around, they were represented, so they were part of negotiating that deal and that structure, and so the business community actually is supporting this approach.
Okay.
There's a philosophical reason, in part, why this is on the governor's agenda. and that is to make Michigan, you know, our manufacturing sector is growing, and we're being recognized as a manufacturing sector that's growing across the country. And one of the stumbling blocks has been, we're one of the few states that has this thing called personal property tax. So manufacturing is a machine-intensive process. And so when you draw in a manufacturing center, they bring in expensive personal property. It's been hampering us in terms of relocating our businesses that have started to manufacture overseas, bringing them back and reshoring them from their offshore premises, in part because of the personal property tax. And it has been hurting many of our businesses that are manufacturers that want to upgrade their equipment. And don't forget, when equipment is upgraded, somebody had to make that equipment. So it creates jobs, it recycles through the economy, and this is the logic for it, and it's pretty sound, actually. So they want to upgrade their equipment that's more fuel efficient, that's more personnel efficient, and they can't do it effectively with the personal property tax hanging over their head in the state of Michigan. They could go to Indiana, they could go to Ohio and do it, but it's more difficult for them to do it here. We want them to come here. We want to provide those jobs and get the economic benefit of all of those workers relocating in our state. So that's the logic.
I understand the philosophy, but I also understand the sweat that we've created around this table, trying to figure out how we're going to pay the bills. And I just don't want us to get blindsided with
Edith's
something.
Gone.
Pardon?
Edith's gone.
Yeah, it is. Now, I just have two quick questions, and one of them is, suppose we have a business that's in the middle of an abatement. What happens to that?
Good question.
You don't, when they come off, my recollection, I apologize, but my recollection is that abated property never comes back out. Because whatever it was in 1231, 2012, matched that time. So they're abated in 1231, they say essentially that portion does not come.
Okay, so what we're counting on later on won't get there.
Sterling Heights had I remember they negotiated some major abatements to keep the plants there, and the thing is, plant was already back on, and it's not going to happen.
Dearborn did too.
Okay, and the last question is, this authority, who is running this authority?
Gubernatorial appointee.
Yeah.
Should have stopped.
Now, they do have limited.
Should have asked that first.
Yeah, we're on a roll there for a while.
It's not like they have wide sweeping authority. They exist to distribute this money via the statute.
And the statutory formula that was created.
As long as
there is a formula.
They have a very limited flexibility. That's
Yeah, and the formula was, I'm telling you, was very difficult to craft.
As Vicki pointed out, the reason they exist is because we didn't create something outside of state government, and again, it happens to be the entire state, you know, it's one of those kind of things. So there's a practical reason it had to be created. It was to get those guarantees and protect that as insulated as best we could.
And quickly to Councilman Percassi's question, the state is still anticipating adequate revenues. It's just that the surplus we were counting on is not as great as we thought it would be. So we're dealing with a question of surplus here and not a question of actual funds coming in. We are not below our projections. We're below what we had hoped would be our surplus. So hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you came down here to talk to us about this, because the ballot language is terrible.
Yes, it is.
I mean, really, no one's going to know what they're voting for. I don't think they will. I have to say, I've never liked the use tax. To me, it just seemed like an unfair thing. So I'm going to support this. But I'm so glad you came down here. Thank you. And there's so many problems with the way the personal property tax penalty that it's put on people and the way it actually hurts people that wanted to expand. So it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
I just want to go off of what Myra was saying. For example, if you have a fixture, a machine, you get depreciation both from the city and also the federal government. Right?
I'm not an accountant. I'm a financial planner, but.
Financial planner. Anyways, you get depreciation. When you buy it, you get tax deduction from the federal government. Now, when that's depreciated out, now you go ahead and you buy new equipment, so you can start depreciating now at another price. Now, is that portion of it off the personal property tax as well?
What, personal property taxes, if this ballot proposal passes, personal property taxes will phase out. They will be gone. And personal property, as you pointed out, is a depreciable asset over time. So it's never been a great one for local communities to count on all the time anyway. But whatever that fixed number was, in whatever the depreciation schedule showed, whatever you were collecting on tax day, December 31st, 2012, that's your fine line.
You know, what's funny is all the articles written about Minnesota's taxes are higher than the state of Michigan, and yet they are growing faster with corporations moving into Michigan. So I don't really think that giving that abatement helps at all for corporations. They're still going to need police, fire, and I'm just...
I think Minnesota's though, if memory serves me correctly, they're higher in sales, they're higher in income.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have...
They don't have a personal property.
No, they don't have personal property, but the taxes
it's not what you
overall
pay,
are
it's how
higher.
you pay it sometimes.
It costs you more money to do business in Minnesota than in
Right, you can't fix roads with no money.
But it's still not coming into
Can't.
Michigan, they're still choosing Minnesota. And I guess it just disturbs me because being a businessman, I do not want to go into my shop and go down a bumpy road and then go into a dirty street and go inside the store and be held up and a policeman don't come to 2.5 hours.
That's a philosophical
But I
discussion
know
that you
that.
and I share.
But
Well, we'll talk about that
what I'm
later.
trying to say is business don't locate just because of the taxes, they deduct it.
Some of us have known that for a long time.
Yeah, you know, Tony, you had mentioned that there was kind of a universal disdain for the personal property tax, but the reason we're having such trouble with it is because I think you found the 7 people in Michigan who didn't mind it. It was $9 million.
There's
you know.
at least 100 of you.
Yeah, yeah. So, to move this conversation to an actual item, I really think it would behoove the city of Southfield if we did pass a resolution at our next televised council meeting urging people to vote for it, given the information, given that the option of voting no is really not an option for our city. Have other communities passed a resolution in support of it? I would maybe consensus around the table through the council president, but I'd love to see that resolution.
Although you did, I don't think you listened to Vicki, what she said.
It couldn't be done.
No,
when we
you
did proposal-
can't spend money on sending out flyers promoting.
Right, we need to have
We
a
could pass a resolution.
We need to make it such simple language that people will understand.
Exactly.
Because the ballot proposal is convoluted.
Let's go around and do a consensus, and we'll come back to this question. Are you interested in this?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Mr. Diver, Mr. Frazier?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I am as well. Mr. Mann?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Your question.
We could do an education piece that doesn't say vote yes or vote no. And I think we ought to put something out to at least let people know the impact of the personal property tax on Southfield. Most people don't even know there's a personal property tax. I don't think the average...
And the name is bad.
And they don't.
They think it's my personal property.
Right.
Well, that's why it's aimed at the residents.
Right.
Thank you.
When,
Welcome.
when Proposal A came out, the council took the position, but each council member tossed in $100, I think it was $100 a piece for the printing and mailing and stuff, so it wasn't, we weren't using it.
Well, I'd be willing to do that.
I would say
lawyer appointments.
Police department, fire department,
They don't want to.
Okay, we're still in session. We'll go to the next item. Item number 4, the Economic Development Initiative for Federal Mogul.
Madam President, I'm going to refer this item to Mr.
Good afternoon, everybody. We have 2 tax abatements. The first one is regarding Federal Mogul. in an effort to keep them in the city of Southfield. They have approached us and asked us for some assistance, and we have some professionals here. Scott Pepin is with Federal Mogul, as well as they have their tax specialist here, so if we have any questions regarding why they're asking for this request after that long discussion, they'll be available. So I'd like to turn it over to Scott. And I do have copies of the presentation, so I'll hand them out.
And can you give us your name, spelling of your last name and your business name?
Sure, it's Scott Pepin, P-E-P-I-N, and we're currently located at 555 Northwestern Highway, Southfield, 48023. Good afternoon. I did have the pleasure of sitting here for the last couple hours, and I did get brief, so I'll do my best. Okay. Again, I know a number of you may be familiar with Federal Mogul, and we were quite honored that the state of the city moving to be recognized for its higher storage in the city of Southfield with our world headquarters. Just a few brief words. Federal Mogul is currently just shy of...
Can you move the mic just a little bit?
Sure. Okay. Currently a $7 billion company, roughly, with business in 33 different countries. This has been the Southfield Senior City for headquarters since 1966. And our goal is to continue driving the business, with this being the home of our world headquarters. You can see we in 93 different manufacturing sites around the world. We operate with 17 distribution centers, so we are both a manufacturer and distributor of automotive parts. We also do some non-automotive, so it's a very diversified company, and we're in 33 countries currently. So just a little bit of background about that. What is really important to the recent story is Federal Mogul, in an effort to try to be profitable and be the leader in both aspects of our total business, one being servicing the OEM, the original equipment manufacturers, and also being a lead distributor into the aftermarket, not only in the United States, but in the rest of the world. We made a conscious decision in 2012 to segment the company into two different segments, run by individual CEOs. So these gentlemen are co-CEOs of the company, but it was in an effort to drive focus in both businesses. Again, in an effort to be brief, I can tell you, being with the company for about 20 years, it was a very OE-slanted company and often ignored the aftermarket, unintentionally, of course. Did not do right by the business, and so this idea of splitting the company, if you will, into two focused areas, but still part of Federal Mogul as a whole, has been in process since September of 2012. Again, we're proud to say that we would choose to stay in the city of Southfield. Again, currently located at 265 Northwestern Highway, moving to 27300 West 11 Mile Road. Federal Mogul today has 700 employees inside of its headquarters. Our plan is to continue with that headcount roughly as we go forward. In fact, I was just telling a colleague of mine, Irv Morse, is with me today from our tax department, that we just recently gone forward with a plan to hire 40 contracted IS or IT people in an effort to drive one of our strategic projects. So the employment picture for Federal Mogul in Southfield looks very promising. The new building, again, has about 20 Southfield residents with a total of 700 employees, and those are 700 badged employees. Federal Mogul also has a number of contractors throughout the year, whether they be tax or IS or other types of consultants, and our headcount can get up to about 750 in any given point during the year. The building has 179,000 square feet roughly. It's about half the size of our current location. At one time, Federal Mogul, when I've been again with the company since 1994, back then we had about 1,100 employees, gone through a number of recessions and some downturns, but we're happy to say that the headcount is now back up to that 750 range, where during the economic recession of 2008 and 2009, we thought 600 was a possibility. So things are going in the right direction. Again, we've got a much more contemporary feel in the building, in this smaller space. We expect it to be driving a very positive and different culture and be able to attract employees going forward. I think important to note on the bottom of this slide, we're making a $7 million investment into the what is known as Tower 300 of the Metro Center complex. The building itself, very aesthetically pleasing on the outside, but needed quite considerable work on the inside. again, to house our layout and again, have that contemporary feel. So the $7 million is a combination of money put forward by Federal Mobile directly on the onset of the move-in and also funded through the rent arrangement that we have with our landlord. Again, a few comments about our commitment to the community. For reasons unbeknownst to me at the time prior to this new management team in 2012, there wasn't as much involvement in the city as we had our headquarters here, but that was the extent of it. For the last couple of years, there's considerable change. We had memberships to the Skyline Club and having more and more events held there. The Westin Hotel was used as our global leadership conference venue back in 2013. A lot of our business travelers are coming and go between the two main hotels that we use, Southfield, Courtyard Marriott, and the Westin. A considerable amount of more use, driving more and more monies into the community. I will point out rather openly and honestly, we're a Southfield Chamber of Commerce member by about a week. And that came through a conversation as we were talking about our involvement in Southfield. I was quite surprised talking to Lisa Williams from our communications department that we were not part of the Chamber of Commerce. It seemed odd to us. So again, there is a strong desire to get more and more involved into the city itself. A few other charities and charitable efforts put forward by Federal Mobile into the Southfield community and the surrounding area. The Southeastern Michigan United Way is our charity of choice. So it is our big charity. $80,000 or so a year goes from our employees into that fund, and then a matching contribution by the company. And you see a number of new charitable efforts. Winning Futures, which is a mentoring program to the schools. Community to School is another effort of our, focused effort made by Federal Mobile, and then a variety of other charities that benefit the Southfield area. So it's improved over the last couple of years, and the commitment to continue to drive more and more focus in Southfield is our plan. Our request today is for a 5-year personal property tax abatement for the years 2015 to 2019, which would total just under $250,000. We have an 11-year lease plan with the new building, and the idea would be to get an abatement for the first 5 years, and then the remaining years, those taxes would come into the city. Again, a lot of it has to do with an offset to the investments made. The $7 million of refurbishment and investment into the building is the main reason for the request. So, at this point, I can take any questions.
I just want to thank Federal Mobile for locating back here, and they've been a great company. One of our first headquarters, I think, in our history.
Thank you. Yes, great pleasure.
Yeah, I want to ask my feelings about that. I think Federal Mobile has been one of our premier companies, and I worked very hard on your behalf to try to know that.
Thank you.
I'm happy that you decided to stay here and really help me.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Without any objections, we will move forward to our agenda for Monday, the 21st. And again, I agree with my colleagues. Thank you for your commitment.
Thank you.
To the city council.
Next year on 21st. Thank you. Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the Economic Development Initiative of Max Patrol.
Continuing with our reinvestment in the city of Southfield and Max Patrol. Many of you might remember then that the city did offer some assistance when they purchased the property across from their main campus. Now they're looking to do a major reconstruction and expansion to their location on Telegraph Road. And I have Chris Kelly here from Max Patrol, and he's going to give us a presentation, as well as Maurice, who will also share some information.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you for considering our request for a tax abatement. I also have my tax specialist, since that's what Federal Mobile called him, John Maurice. That's a tough one to follow. We're not quite as big as Federal Mobile. But Max Patrol Company has already decided to stay here in Southfield and keep this their home also. Our building's been here since 1960, and it needs to be changed. We want to build more of a campus setting to attract employees. In this area, obviously everything, for the most part, is automotive. We are not automotive at all. I'd like to give you a little presentation about the company, and John's going to go over some numbers with you guys. If you have any questions, please stop me. Mastrol is a global company. We export a lot of product. We have our location on Telegraph Road, 23555 Telegraph. We are also across the street, 23600 Telegraph. We have our electronics manufacturing over there, but 23555 Telegraph is our headquarters. We do administrative, and our R&D center is there. We are also located in Germany. We have 2 sister companies in Germany. We've been there since the 60s, and a small office in the UK. We were established in 1946. As I stated, we moved to Southfield in 1960. When the wall fell in Germany, we bought a company over there that was very similar to ours, and I'll show you a couple of products. We are a world leader in the manufacture of gas pressure regulators and controls for the gas industry. I'll show you a couple things that may make sense to you. A lot of it doesn't. I'm a bean counter, so when it comes to the technical side of it, I don't understand it all. We distribute throughout the world. We currently have 230 employees in Michigan and 60 in Southfield. A little bit about our customers. We have over 1,600 customers. Our product lines, we have about 22 product platforms, and we produce a lot of orders, a lot of product. 15% of our sales we export each year. We are certified around the world. We take a lot of pride in the quality of our product, and because we are selling everywhere in the world, we have to be certified in all these different countries. This gives you a little idea of who we sell to. Some of the ones that you may recognize if you have a gas stove at home. You probably have our controls on all your burners and regulates the flow of the gas. If you have a gas fireplace at home, you probably have control from Germany, a remote from Germany, and a control from here that regulates the flow of gas. Commercial cooking, makeup air units, recreational vehicles that have propane in them. These are some of our products. We make the real small ones that would be in your stove in Colon, Michigan. We make the bigger ones that are more industrial in Blissfield, Michigan. And as I stated, all our electronics are made across the street at 23600 Telegraph. This is the remote control for the fireplace, and the controls on the right. So if you do have a gas fireplace and you don't have one of our controls, let me know. I can probably do something for you. Just a few more products. This is an interesting one. It's a plug for natural gas. So if you're going to put something outside, you have a pool or you have something outside that you want to be able to hook and move, like a heater, it's a nice aesthetic device that allows you to plug it in, get your gas out, unplug it, put it away. We are going to be making a $3 million investment in renovating the building. Like I said, it's been around since 1960. The actual founder of the company, Frank Curry Jr., built all the buildings himself. If you go to any of our other locations and look them up online, they're going to look very similar. It looks like a old schoolhouse, so to speak. This is a rendition of what it's going to look like. As I stated earlier, we want to make this investment, we want to stay in Southfield, but we know that it's very competitive around here with the auto business. Our headquarters is mainly engineering and R&D. So we're competing against the auto industry, which is doing very well right now. Glad they are, but it makes it tough for us. One more rendition, like I said, what we want to do is we want to get more of a campus feeling to our building. We're going to have areas outdoors for people to walk around in the summertime. Certainly not in the winter, not after last winter. But we want it to be nice for the employees, we want it to be nice for the community. When you drive down Telegraph Road, you have Lear and a couple other businesses that are some very nice buildings. We want to be right there with them. Local businesses. We do a lot of business with local businesses. These are several of them. I heard somebody talk earlier. when you're talking about automation alley, Secure 24, and a lot of the work that they did for them. We were one of their first business partners when they were founded. The two owners are actually from Pyramid, so we kind of had a connection with our business over there. But we do a lot of business with a lot of businesses in Southfield. Think about that when we go out to look for a business partner. Go to all the local establishments for lunch. We have a lot of employees. No one brings their lunch at Maxwell, so trying to put those dollars out there. We use Lawrence Technological University a lot. We go to all the job fairs. We have 3 or 4 engineers that came out of there. We have interns from there, and we enjoy it. It's a great university. It gives us a lot of good employees. We are a member of the Southfield Area Chamber of Commerce. The founder was a member of Plum Hollow. He passed away in 2001, but he was a member for years and years and years. We give to the Michigan Colleges Foundation, Southfield High School, the firefighters, and the Police Officers Association. That is this presentation. I'm sure when I'm asked, if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them for you. Like I said, John is going to go over some numbers. Right.
And John, can you give us your last name?
Yeah, it's John Maurice. I'm with Paradigm Tax Group over here on Civic Center Drive.
And what's the address, business address?
20700 Civic Center Drive in Southfield, 4076. The handout that Shelley gave you just is a breakdown of the tax impact on the city. Now, keep in mind that this is just for the addition part of the building. Maxitron would still continue to pay full tax on the existing part of the building. Based on the multipliers that the city utilizes, which are based upon the number of jobs added and the investment, this would be a 7-year abatement that's being requested. And then at the bottom part of that, I just wanted to add that after the abatement period expires, this is what the full tax would be. And that's assuming that there's some increase in the market value of the property over that time. And you can see at the very bottom line what the 15-year impact is as far as what we're requesting for the abatement and what the total tax would be.
Any questions or Shelley?
I just wanted to add one thing. So again, this is for real property.
50%.
50% of the real property investment.
So we will receive 50% of the taxes.
Right, so they will be paying their current taxes, and then our city assessor will be reevaluating everything, so we will be capturing 50%, and so that's what we're looking for. And there was some question regarding, they have started some site work and started, this type of assistance allows the company to begin the process before they ask for the assistance. And we will be submitting this to the state of Michigan if it's approved by the city council.
Mr. Moss? Mr. Spiker?
Can we get a copy of your PowerPoint?
I'd be happy to get that.
And I just want to add that I've been here a long time, along with some of my colleagues, and we drive by Max Patrol, and you've been there, and you've been there, and you've been there, and we're glad you're going to stay and expand. We're also glad that we've done a lot over the years to clean up Telegraph Road, and this will just be another addition to that. So, thank you.
Mr. McCarthy?
Good, I was just looking for Mr. Frazier. There, she did it. Hans Frazier.
Yeah, I'd just like to add on to what Ken has just said about the Telegraph Road, and I noticed that there are a couple of businesses up the road from you that are putting in new lawns. I don't know if you've been out there to see that, but yeah, it's going to be if we can get that entrance into Southfield looking like it's a proud piece of our community, that and I'm sure that this is going to help. My question is, how are you going to keep the skateboarders off your road?
That's marketing. That's free marketing.
You better have a swimming pool or something to fall into when they get to the
Don't forget.
rebrand the area as a technology corridor. We're working with the students at Lawrence Tech to help market the area and create a better vision, and working with the businesses along the corridor. And as everyone should be aware, that we're having a breakfast for the businesses on August 6th, and that will be presented, as well as it'll give us an opportunity to talk to the businesses along the road to get their input.
Yes, I just want to add my 2 cents worth to the comments of the council. I'm very glad to see this improvement that you're doing. I think it's going to be a wonderful property. It is now, but I think what you're doing is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm delighted to support you.
And I echo my colleagues. I think this is a great reinvestment in the city of Southfield. Thanks for your commitment here, and we'll see you on Monday.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the Miracle Lead Concession Building Review. Pros.
Just need a minute to set up, please.
Madam President, while we're setting up, I just want to comment, under the radar, which goes on public broadcasting, there's actually a segment that's plugging the Miracle League. The half-hour show starts off with Southfield and the Miracle League. It's a really nice piece. If you haven't seen it, it's played a number of times, and you can go on to PBS and see it. Let me just remind council that this project does fulfill a lot of the Parks and Recs Department for our ADA program, and will establish 2 ADA restrooms the north part of our campus.
Good afternoon. Again, as Council may recall, this item came forth on June 9th as a preliminary study session prior to going through the Planning Commission review. Again, as property owners, you gave permission to go through with the Planning Commission process. It also has gone to the
Go ahead.
It's also gone to the Park and Recreation Board and received favorable approval. On June 18th, the Planning Commission held a regular meeting after several study sessions. There was no public input at the time, but they made a favorable recommendation. And we wanted to come one last time before the regular meeting next week. It is a site plan, not a public hearing, but all the neighbors and businesses within 350 feet were notified and given an opportunity to speak. I think last time you saw the concept rendering of a baseball-themed concession stand, and we have members of Parks and Rec Board here with any specific questions. But there's the rendering. I would like to point out on the site aerial, the actual location is the foundation that's surrounded by a fence that was started about 10 years ago. So they will be using that foundation and footprint for the concession stand. The city, working with community development block grant funds for ADA accessibility as well as Parks and Recreation, are proposing additional barrier-free parking spaces on the north end of the library parking lot with a ADA accessible crosswalk that ties in with the existing sidewalk system. And somewhere in this location, a gated arch that picks up some of the building materials and the theme of the concession stand to give it a little more ambience and try to create more of a sports complex feel.
Do you have that picture with you?
Those renderings are in your packet. I do have a small 8.5 by 14 of the concept plan. And so we would be using the same building materials and architectural style that the concession building is for. This would be put in using city allocated funds and some additional improvements such as possibly some pedestrian themed lighting along the existing pathway. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know we have staff from Parks and Rec to ask about questions about specific to the building, but as far as site plan, everybody was favorable.
Yeah, no, I run into the announcer for the Miracle Field, I think the other day, and he was telling me that some of the upgrades were using equipment from Old Tiger Stadium, That, I'm curious.
We've got some heads nodding, so
That's pretty
I
cool.
believe.
I'm just curious, what's being used?
A couple lockers maybe and some seats.
Seating, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Some of the bleachers, some of the stadium seating, I believe.
That's pretty cool.
And if you've seen some preliminary concepts, the building has come a long way with input from several key members of Parks and Rec and other city staff. So I think this is something that everyone can be proud of.
Yeah, I just want to say to Parks and Recreation people and everybody involved, this is a wonderful addition to that area, for sure. It's just uplifting, and I'm delighted with it. Totally delighted with it. This is the easiest thing I've had to vote on for so long. Absolutely. It's a win.
So one thing, if I could ask, there was a packet of site plans that were submitted as part of this. Either you keep them till next week, or I'll collect them and re-put them in your packet. We're trying to get some funding.
We'll just send them in to you right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, is it this stuff here?
Yes. I'll redistribute it then on Friday.
Yep, there you go.
Thank you.
That is for that.
Yep.
Next item on agenda, Mr. Crowley, Go on, you're taking the water.
Council, we are asking, for the immediate need to act, and requesting that the council approve the receipt of bids for water service connection and water service maintenance service contracts and award the bid to ILE Construction of Plymouth. This is for the work in our water and sewer system, our connections, repairing, we respond to an emergency basis, repairing, maintaining, and turning of gate valves. To assist us, the bids were received in February 18th, 2014, and to assist staff in evaluating the proposals, we engaged our friends at Tucker Young, Ani Cash.
Kakish.
Say it again?
Kakish.
And I practiced it, I'm sorry. I'll work it. In the event council had any questions, they could be directed to either Larry Searles, who is here, as well as on.
Any questions? Seeing none, we can Rule 10 on this.
Move a Rule 10. Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Snyder, supported by Mr. Moss for Rule 10. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, I'll move the receipt of bids for the water service connections and the water and sewer maintenance services contracts.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Snyder, supported by Mr. Moss to receive the receipt of bids for the water connection contract. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Is that to award the bid?
To award the bid.
Okay.
Award.
Okay, award the bid. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. There's a substantial savings if you, when you review those numbers for the city. We've got some really competitive pricing on that.
Like doing a Rule 10, we saved the 10, or Rule, couldn't wait till next week.
What do you want to take the next one?
Thank you.
The proposed amendment for the liquor license.
And I'll note I'm not asking for a vote.
Do I like you?
This is a proposed amendment to the city's current ordinance that deals with liquor licenses. In the past, obviously, we would all be familiar with the process where somebody would want to get a liquor license from the state. They'd have to come to the city, we would have to recommend in favor of the license, and then that recommendation would go up to the Liquor Control Commission, and they would, based on everything, then give a license. What's happened now is the LCC, the Liquor Control Commission, has changed their interpretation, and what they're doing now is on a very swift basis. If somebody applies for a liquor license, they do a little bit of preliminary review, and then they grant the license. They don't wait for us any longer. However, their rules specifically say that a license application or a license holder has to comply with all municipal rules and regulations and ordinances. Our existing ordinance talks about a review process, but it never specifically says You have to get the approval from the city of Southfield before you can even get a license. So what we're asking in this amendment is to establish a process where an applicant has to come through the city in our normal fashion and get an approval from the city. And what will happen procedurally is the LCC will probably, in most instances, because they're on such an expedited basis, they will grant the license, even though the person doesn't have our approval. We will go through our process. If the person does not get our approval, we have the right, and the rules say that the LCC will then revoke the license based upon a failure of the applicant to complete our process. We've had some debate. We went before legislative committee on this proposed amendment, and the way it's structured right now has kind of been consistent with what we've historically done. It's been for Class C kind of on-premise licenses. We did not include in here any discussion of the off-premise license, so the liquor stores, the party stores. Those are not included in this proposed amendment, and we've had a lot of discussion on, is that something that council wants? Do you want to have a process where the SDMs, the SD, those kinds of licenses for off-premises consumption, that they come through a process where the city approves that? The legislative committee felt, let's get this one through. We're very concerned with the on-premises, the Class C, the hotels, for example. Let's get this through and maybe have another discussion on, do you want to go onto the party stores and require them to come through a process as well? Again, it's kind of an issue at this point. I do think we need this because right now, technically, because our ordinance is not a real express on needing our approval, somebody could say, I'm not coming through your process because I'm not sure your ordinance requires it. So I think this piece is key, is to get this.
Yeah, I can speak on this because it came out of legislative committee. The reason that we decided not to right away talk about the off-premise, off-site premises is because we didn't see that there was such an infiltration of new off-site premises selling liquor that, you know, we would want to have a whole rigorous process, perhaps assigning staff to that at the time. We didn't want to take up staff time to come up with a plan for something that we didn't necessarily see as a problem right now. It's certainly not in the last several years. And there's already things in the planning process that prevent another off-site premise coming to Southfield if it's too close to another off-site premise. So we have certain roadblocks toward an infiltration of new liquor stores that we didn't want to expend staff time and energy to come up with a plan to deal with them when it's not necessarily a problem right now. Having said that, though, I'm curious as to what the clerk's take on all this is, dealing with all the liquor licenses coming in.
Oh, and one of the reasons we had included all businesses that hold a license is it's a tool for us to presently collect any pending water bills and any personal property and our taxes if one business is going to sell to a different individual. And did Mr. Lohenberg provide you with anything?
He did not.
I apologize. Mr. Lohenberg was supposed to provide us with a spreadsheet so council could see exactly the number of party stores that have been sold and who still owes money, but I don't.
Well, the other thing that we talked about, and we used to have a process, and the process was this. We know that all liquor licenses in the state of Michigan, both on and off premises, renew on April 1st of every year. So we at least had conceptually a process where in January we would look and see of all those liquor license people that held those licenses, who was delinquent on their taxes or their water. And then we had formatted letters that went out and said, you know, you're delinquent on this, and our ultimate stick here was to say those taxes need to be paid, or we're going to make a recommendation to the LCC that your license not be renewed on April 1st. So that process, again, conceptually, is there. I don't know that it's happening. When I talked to the treasurer about it, he said there had been some discussion that, again, with Jack on the issue was that Jack said, but if you're going to do that, you have to do it to everybody. You can't pick and choose which, and I, of course, say that's absolutely right. You can't pick and choose. But if our concern on the off-premises licenses is that we want to make sure that they're paying their taxes and their water bill, we can do that. We can do that outside of having them included in a formal approval process for their license. So, I mean, that's kind of where I think we all are just kind of not exactly sure where council I think that it's clear that we've always regulated and approved the on-premises, and so we thought that was important to bring to you. Whether you want us to continue looking at the off-premises, we're certainly happy to do that, come up with a recommendation based upon kind of where this body wants to go.
And I agree with the on-premise, it's just that the off-premise has not been enforced. And what do we do to enforce this? Because we've tried the last 2 years, but it's not being done. So by, putting it in the ordinance, it, maybe we'll be able to be successful, but it's not being done right now.
Yeah, I just think that, why would you pick on those who are selling beverages, takeout? I mean, you don't do it with restaurants, you don't do it with closed stores, and nothing else. I pick on them. When I come from that district, I look at it without getting more license. You need a license for everything. Liquor control comes in, gives you a white glove checkup when you get your license renewed. Insurance is a killer. Why would you put them through any more? I mean, it seems like, you get a hold of the beverage news and you see they're just really hurting because of all the insurance increases and everything that falls upon them is different than most. I mean, it does not say they should be paying their water bill and their taxes, but as Irv said, if you don't pay your taxes, they put it on your if they don't pay your water bill, they put it on your taxes, and at the time, if you don't pay your taxes, you go to the county and they pay us. Right. County pays us anyway, so you're not losing the money. It's just that the county's collecting the money for you. So I just don't see a need to make a separate ordinance to do takeouts.
I think right now, administratively, the administration needs to figure this out and put in place the proper checks. And we can do that now without broadening this ordinance. And we are going to get this on our work order that there's some type of periodic checkup, and we will find a place, a department or an individual to appropriately house that function in. But the review of water bills, taxes, to make sure they're current. And if we find something deficient, then we can take that to the LCC.
Right. I mean, I really
not
think
have to be the hammer.
And I really think that if there's anything that I think is not taken care of are the landscapings that we ask for to be put in at the time we do site plan, and we don't follow up on it, and they don't use their water system, and don't water their grass, it dies, and pretty soon you have just an unkept place, and their location is usually a spot where it's more noticeable. I look at the one on Telegraph Road, and I just said they're really, that whole strip should never have been there, stores, because that back part, which is for sale, that's where they wanted to put that, Rizzo wanted to put their dump station there. But that could have been a beautiful tech park, if it wouldn't have had the ugly stores in front. But, that's where the trailer park used to be. But, I just think that the inspections of our site plans are in fact, it's just like some of the other stuff. Mr. Frazier?
Yeah, first of all, before we solve a problem, we have to find out whether we have a problem. And if we don't have a problem, I don't see any reason to.
On the party stores?
Yeah.
Right, that's what we were trying to get, was the list together. So you're right, we're trying to get that information, right, if there's a problem.
Yeah. But we already have, I think, enough leverage on water bills and taxes that unless there's something that's falling apart, and we talked about in the legislative committee about Cracker Barrel, how it was, just a rundown place, and when the new guy bought it, he said he had to throw out almost all of their merchandise because it was expired and out of date, and started over again, so. And I don't know that we're food inspectors either, so.
And that guy really gave a hard time to, he called me, he said, these guys are, after he said, I'm cleaning this place up, you should have been here before.
Yeah.
You know, and he did a nice job.
It's a palace in there. It is great.
Yeah, he did a beautiful job.
And if we want to use, and I'm, in sync with Jeremy on staff time, if we're going to spend staff time, I don't think we need to spend it on carry-out stores. I think we need to spend it on apartment inspections. And if we only have a certain amount of time, staff time available to us, we need to use it for apartment inspections, which I think is a greater problem. Now, does this ordinance cover a microbrewery? If a microbrewery
If they have an
comes to
on-premises license, yes, which
Okay.
they do. Yes, they would have an on-premises.
Okay. All right, that's it.
Okay, without any objection, this will move to, meeting for July 21st.
So we only have, do we have a purpose?
That's, yeah, that's.
That's the next item on our agenda. And we're just changing that one as well.
Correct. So this is a new ordinance that, is really, and I know there's always been this discussion on the apartment inspection, and that's really outside of this. We ran into this as being a real issue when we were getting some phone calls on Providence Place Apartments, and at the time, you know, we know that there was a foreclosure going on, and we know that, you know, we were unclear and unsure at the time as to whether the lender had foreclosed against the owner, you know, did the owner walk away, what was happening, and then we were receiving phone calls from residents saying, you know, I went to pay my rent, or I went to say that there was a problem, and there's nobody in the office, it's locked, and it's like they walked away. And so we started trying to make some phone calls and try to figure out what was going on, you know, is the lender taking over, what's going on, and we didn't have a real good way of finding a way to communicate with the owner or the management company. We just didn't have that information. So we started going on to the Oakland County Register of Deeds site, finding out the owner there, going through the state site to find was there a registered agent. It's just it took a long time to find out who could we call.
What about our own tax?
Yeah, that's a tax bill, but again, this is to like either the owner or the management company. So what all this is designed to do is to say that once a year, these apartment communities, which we're defining, again, is just, you could do it differently, but I use 4 or more units is an apartment community under this ordinance. Once a year, they need to come in and tell us who the owner is, what's the address, what's the phone number, and who the manager, individual or company is, and what's their phone number and what's their address. This is not an uncommon ordinance in other cities. I've seen it across the United States. Just so that we have a way when we need to get in contact that we're able to find out that information. I'm thinking, you know, again, just throwing on the table maybe $100 just to register that information. You register with the building department, and it would be good for a year unless the property changes hands, in which case then you'd have 30 days to provide new information. So that's all this is simply to require a registration so the city knows how to get in contact with whoever owns and is operating it.
What's the difference between businesses? I mean, the businesses that have to get that contact with businesses.
Well, I guess the difference as I see it is you have people living there. And in this instance, if nobody was managing that operation and we potentially thought it was going to go months during a foreclosure, what's going to happen to people? So if their heat goes out in the middle of...
Gotta know who.
Exactly.
I don't.
Because people live here,
Yeah.
and this is a health safety law.
Absolutely.
So, and that it's just to save us some time.
Do we not have all that
We
information?
do not have that information. You can get it. We got there, but it took many hours. It took a whole afternoon to really get to phone calls here and there, and then I talked to people in New York, and they were like, well, I wouldn't be the right person to talk to this. And by the time we got through that process, I mean, if it had been true that we had no management company in there at the time, people would have been really in a bad situation.
Really, the out-of-state owners that we have to stop.
That's the big
Yeah.
problem, that's the big problem.
They don't care.
They'll find
They,
out what
they
it costs.
probably would, I think they call it fire department, right?
Well, we've had several examples of that, like with that child, and different things that happen.
At Providence Place. But I will say that in the meantime, we did have a meeting with the residents because they've been obviously very concerned what's going on. And we had almost a whole chambers full. I was really shocked at how many people came in, the residents there, and a lot of issues. But the owner has agreed to deed the property back to the lender to stop the foreclosure. And the bad side about the foreclosure is after the foreclosure, which was scheduled for about a month ago, there's 6 months that owner has the right to operate that thing and technically to, redeem it if they were able to, which they didn't have the money, it was clear. But in all that time, they're not investing in the building. They don't seem to really care about the condition. And that's what filled this chambers up, is that people were concerned. So the lender now owns the building. And we've got meetings set with them. They again saying all the right things. They're going to invest in the building. They recognize we've got court orders about what things have to be done. So we're on them, and they at least again are saying the right thing to try to get these buildings
But you
back
never
up.
know. I mean, don't you have to have? This just boggles my mind that would get to this. That you have somebody's out of state or out of site. They're not in the area, and they don't care.
Well, they don't,
But we don't know until it gets really bad.
Right. Well, we've been in court on Providence Place Apartments for a year now, and they did a lot. They put two new roofs on the bigger buildings. They got rid of the raw sewage that was in the basement. They got rid of mold. It was horrible. So they've done a lot, but they really had no money, and they were getting some interim loans. And once that stopped, they had no money to do anything. So at least this company now.
What could we have done if we had a meeting with that?
Well, again, it was just a communication, and more of an ease of communication, to find out what was going on at that particular point, to be able to alleviate some concerns of residents that there's nobody caretaking this property anymore. What's going to happen if my heat goes out? So, that's what this was.
The one up there on 12 Mile, that was Tiffany, and what's the other one? Tiffany was the condos, and what's the one that was Wellington?
Oh, Wellington?
Wellington, yeah.
Okay, okay.
I mean, we find out after it's gotten so bad.
Right, right.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll see this on Monday night's agenda. Mr. Zorn,
The next item is pursuant to Public Act 34 of 2014, we have received $650,000 for resurfacing a mill and overlay for Providence Drive from J.L. Hudson Drive to 9 Mile Road. This is a grant project. The city will be facilitating the bid versus the state. We are being told right now that we will receive a check for $650,000. That is, it's not a reimbursable grant. From time to time, we get these requests from reps or state senators asking us to give us a list of your road projects. And we're usually giving less than 24 to 48 hours to do it. We did a list last June 19th to our state senator. We did this list May 1st to our state rep. And it was one of the projects picked for funding. We did have the north end of Providence Drive on the list. We weren't asked which projects. We submitted a list of about 7, 8 projects.
As long as you didn't do Evergreen Road between.
We've actually eliminated from the list that we had federal, we had prior approval of funding. I need to execute a 1-page form with the state that we're willing to accept the grant. I'm asking for a Rule 10 on this. We did have a 2-hour meeting on Friday. We're really giving a lot of thought as to how we may try to take the $650,000, couple it with a water sewer project, and maybe a few other innovative ways. We're trying to get all of Providence Drive done from J.L. Hudson Drive up to Greenfield. And I know we recently received a very appealing letter our DDA director has met with, the leadership at Providence Power, is that right?
Yeah, condominiums.
Condominiums. There may be some discussion about a special assessment district, a kind of a combination, so a water project, make it bigger. So we're giving this a lot of thought, but I do need the authority, and we need to get a response back to MDOT to accept these funds.
I'll move to Rule 10.
Support. We have a motion by Mr. Stivers, supported by Ms. Seymour for Rule 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I'll move that we give the city administrator the authority to submit Providence Drive from Jail Hudson to 9 Mile for the state grant.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Stivers, supported by Ms. Seymour to give our city administrator authority to submit the grant for the project. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I have a question.
Conclude Rule 10.
Yeah, I have a question. Is that 660 gonna cover it?
It'll cover the section that we planned on. The initial, if we do a mill and resurface for the northern section, I think the number was 840,000. And then when we started looking at the water main breaks 50 years old, just in asbestos containing material. We have a modest break history. It's not one of our worst sections, but it is 50 years old. We want to go through the exercise of can we make the project bigger and get a better project for our taxpayers.
Yeah, that south half of that is pretty torn up.
Yep. And I'm not sure how the projects got fit. I'm sure the hospital had a lobbyist, and they probably weighed in on it as well. I know our lobbyist was weighing in.
Speaking of that, I defy anyone to explain the left turn, in that left turn intersection on Providence Drive behind the hospital.
Make a left turn on the what?
Back to go into the hospital.
Or to go into the hospital.
Or make a left turn to go up Providence Drive. I don't know if you've ever seen the signs up there.
I've been
I defy anybody to explain how you do that without breaking the law.
I didn't have to do the old emergency room from that side.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But they've got no turn on the left unless the arrow is green, but is that left into the hospital, left on going back up? But all four of the roads have the same
It's very,
sign up.
when it's busy, it's busy.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what to do. Yeah.
I just look for an opening and go through.
All right, Mr. Zorn, you're going to take the next one.
The final item on the 21st, we'd like to formally appoint Nikki Lumpkin as our purchasing agent. As indicated in the communication, the pay grade is a 10. We're proposing compensation at $73,500 effective July 1, 2013. She would have all other benefits. Is that not right?
73.5 effective January 1
Well,
of this year.
January 1, I'm sorry.
July 1 effective 70,000.
Yes.
That'd be the 5% bump that people
Like
get
going
after,
back to
but
what she
because
did
she's
with
been
the
doing
job.
it right.
So effective July 1, 2013 will be 70,000. 6 months later, this 5% bump would take the compensation package up to 73,000. We would ask council to act on that.
January or July? You said July 2013.
July 1, it was July 1, 2013, 70,000. 5% increase would be at January 1, 2014, and that would take the compensation to 73,500.
So it's all retro.
Right.
Okay.
And our previous administrator's been gone since March of 2013.
Yes.
It used to be a 3-person department. We're down to 1 person right now, budgeted at 1.5 people.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, Nikki's been doing the job, and Nikki's been doing the job, and so now that she has the formal title, or will on the 21st, or is there a vision to give her support staff in that department?
The answer is yes,
Yeah.
and actually she has some very creative ideas that we will be exploring about utilizing some of our other employees at Central Business Services as well.
Okay, great.
I had a very similar question, that is, if she's got on vacation, what happens when she doesn't? Yeah, she take her books with her? No, it's not to you, it's to Fred, that if you're the sole employee,
Yeah.
you have to go on vacation if you are, have a cold, you can't come into work, and there's a question, who answers, who does the
We
work?
have budgeted a half-time employee, and then in the dialogue the last week, I think she had some of the most creative thought about utilizing some other staff to help augment that purchase. The position, it is our intent that the position will, as historically, will report to the Director of Financial Services. Her office will probably stay in the same location, hopefully safe on that, but you're correct, we're very thin, and it leads to where we need to do some better cross-training and that.
Don't you have a pool of secretaries over there, or secretaries at the counter? They could answer?
No.
Where do they answer?
Primarily HR, human resources.
Downstairs?
No, she's upstairs.
Upstairs.
Oh, okay. I thought she was over and downstairs by Jim's whole office.
Nikki, you've been with us how long?
I've been here for 14 years. I did start out downstairs by Jim's old office.
Yeah.
And then we moved upstairs with HR, where I still am now.
So you know it pretty well.
I was gonna vote against you, but you showed up.
Don't stand there.
Good luck.
Family.
Thank you.
Bringing everybody to take pictures.
Congratulations.
Okay. We have one meeting. Oh, we have regular meeting.
I'll move that, schedule a regular meeting, conduct this committee of the whole for Monday, July 21st at 5:30.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. McCarthy, supported by Mr. Frazier, to schedule a regular committee of the whole for Monday, July 21st.
Do we have to have a 10 on that?
Yes, you do.
Oh, I moved to 10 first then. Moved by me, moved by John.
Okay, so we have a motion for Rule 10 by Mr. McCarthy, supported by Ms. Lehman. All in favor?
Aye. Then also, meeting start at 5:30 as opposed to 7.
Support.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, supported by Mr. Frazier, to schedule the meeting for the 5:30 for the committee of the whole. All in favor?
Aye.
What's the topic of the 5:30?
They will be discussing the building department.
Oh, okay.
We'll move to the communication portion of our agenda. Gerald, you have 3 minutes.
Pamela Gerald, P.O. Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037-0155. My telephone number is 248-346-0439. First of all, I'm going to say that several members of this table have came to the Black Chamber of Commerce meetings and basically stated that they would use their position on council to bridge the gap between, say, 8 Mile and Detroit and getting businesses involved with the Black Chamber. Dr. Cyber, when you were the president, you really reached out to the chamber, so thank you for that. But I think it's very disingenuous for Shelley not to mention to these companies that there is a Black Chamber of Commerce and to get these people involved. So I just want to put that out there and put that on the agenda for July 21st. Also, through the chair, if my police officers are going to be in here for these 3-4 hour meetings, it's imperative that they have a chair that they can sit down in and be comfortable, because with all their waste equipment, they can't sit in these chairs. So they need to be comfortable, and they should not be standing on their feet for 2 to 4 hours with these meetings. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is I was at that meeting that our esteemed attorney, Sue Ward, and Nita Murray Greer did regarding Providence Place Apartments. And I will tell you, this city has a lot of talent. You guys need to take the ropes off and let these people do what they can do. we need to get some of these positions filled and not have these acting positions. But Sue Ward was absolutely incredible. If I lived in that complex, I would have walked out of there with just a lot of confidence. The questions that you answered, the things that you said, what you told them you could say and could not say being an attorney for the city. I mean, even when you couldn't answer the question, you still listened and you stayed focused on the fact that I'm an attorney for the city of Southfield. I can't give legal advice, but these are your rights. I thought it was a very great meeting. You were very classy. I mean, I've just never seen you in that element. You had such authority, such a confidence, and a lot of the people walked out feeling like they were somebody after that. So thank you very much for that. And how much time do I have left?
43 seconds.
Okay, so make sure July 21st, there's some talk about the Black Chamber and these businesses, and I'll do my due diligence to contact them to let them know as well. So make sure you mention that.
Next person I have is Gerard Nolan.
Madam President, my name is Gerard Mullen. My address is Post Office Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037. I was wondering, has anyone on this council read council's legal notice for this upcoming public hearing on July 21st for the Brownfield? If you have, can you tell me where this property is located at, based on the legal notice itself? I doubt it. The only description contained within this notice is a surveyor's hieroglyphics. That is an esoteric description which I believe that no one on this council knows how to translate. If you, the elected officials, can't understand your own legal mumbo-jumbo, how do you expect the residents to understand your legal mumbo-jumbo? What's next? Legal notice is written in Greek. The legal requirement to what should have been in the Brownfield public hearing legal notice is contained within the Act itself. Section 13, subsection 11A, and I quote, a description of the property to which the plan applies in relation to existing or proposed highways, streets, streams, or otherwise, unquote. In other words, a simple street address would have been sufficient. So why didn't you use a simple street address to identify this property instead of hieroglyphics? Is it because you didn't want another Walmart night with hundreds of protesters? If that be the case, shame on you, all of you. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you.
Norma Anderson. Jeanette Mann. And Mr. Fred Bunker.
Fred Bunker, 24201 Garner. First of all, I stumbled in here last week in order to pick up some FOIA information regarding the receipt that showed Miss Ward's name on the $1,000 request for an appraisal on my property back in '09. Another document with only her name and my address on it requesting an appraisal that gave me $105,000 of value on my home. At the time, Mr. Bede had 2 days left of his employment with the city that this appraisal was created, as he promised to negotiate with me a purchase price on my property. Since that time, I filed 2 FOIA requests and asked the city attorney repeatedly to help me understand why this appraisal was ordered, as Nick Vanda promised to purchase my property. He's no longer here. His boss, Mr. Charette, no longer here. We only have one witness to what went on, and that's the recently appointed city attorney, who seems as though she was given a raise to say less about this appraisal than she knows. Last week, when I came in, I had no idea a meeting was going on. I came in, and what you know, Max Atrol, who bought the property next door to me after the last tax abatement they got, Miss Rochelle Freeman talked about the property on East Telegraph they were purchasing. She never mentioned they were going to buy the residential property next door to me, prohibited by 4 incumbents who agreed they would use the 40-year-old tax abatement policy as written to disallow residential real estate purchase with tax abatement money, as Max Atrol did, and now here they are, their abatement on East Telegraph has expired. They started construction last fall for what this new world headquarters is. If they can come 8 months after the project has started and request a new construction tax abatement and tell me in the hall with the officers overlooking our conversation that they have no intention to buy any more residential property, and the 6-foot fence they put up to provide the prevention of me to control these weeds that have covered their property, and the city planner who told us the house was slated for demolition 3 years ago. The house sits, rodents, vermin. We caught 24 muskrats so far. Let them, you know, this property that Max Atrol owns, they didn't go into the agenda of this so-called park or campus-like setting. You can't get through the woods. The vines are so dense. It's an environmental nightmare that Mr. Witkowski was made aware of 20 years ago when I identified the weed as a noxious invasive weed, and he's done nothing but cut 13 acres of trees down across the street from me, after which he was promoted to the head of city code enforcement. So the Witkowski family has done well at the expense of the quality of life in my neighborhood. Congratulations on their increase in pay. And again, Mr. Zorn, I appreciate your outreach.
Your time is up. Thank you. Okay, Counselor, there any other items you brought?
Yes.
I do too.
I was contacted by a resident of Cranbrook, and he has talked to a number of departments in the city, and it would seem to me that we could do something for him in regard to the swim club on Evergreen Road. When they have meets, the number of people that show up for the meets far exceeds their parking, and so people park in the neighborhood, and they park on both sides of the street, like Hickory Hill, I think it's Hickory Leaf and Cherry Hill. And my solution would be a temporary traffic order, rather than permanently manning parking on 2 sides of the street. It's an occasional problem. I don't know the dates of but it's, I guess, pretty regularly all summer long. They have these meets, and people come from all over. You know, it's a nice thing, except that they're creating a hazard for the residents who can't get through, and also emergency vehicles because of the parking on both sides of the street. So I'm wondering if no one suggested a temporary traffic order. Those can be issued, it doesn't have to come to council, and would address the problem of the safety and just the availability to get to your home.
If I could, Mr. Wozniak and I have discussed this. I think the issue with the temporary is those people who are maybe doing normal functions. There is, and that may be our fallback. I spoke with Parks and Rec, though, about going to the swim club. We have, with other groups, made the smart bus available for transporting people, and kind of, if we could find a local church or something,
Well,
and
Grove High School is right there.
shuttle people back and forth. That was the other dialogue that happened. If we can't get that, then we'll move with some temporary order. And I do have the dates up. They have a big need that, from what Dave described, Mr. Worsnam described, is havoc on the neighborhood. So.
Right. But, you know, traffic told them, well, to take a council action. Somebody else told him something else. And he just felt like he was getting a bit of a runaround. And it just seems to me a temporary traffic order cleans the whole thing up.
As long as folks understand with the temporary, there's the issue when, if it's a Saturday or Sunday, maybe someone has, a birthday party. There, it can cut both ways. When we put those orders up, we're stopping the but maybe someone who's having a family function.
I get it.
We can get over that, though, and we can work that out.
What about being in two different cities? You go just down the way, they're in Beverly.
Can I add to
They're
this?
in Moss Avenue.
The Beverly Hillside, I don't know if this is the village that provides it, but there's no parking on the Beverly Hillside because they all have no parking lawn signs in front of their lawn. I don't know if that's residential people just putting them out in their own lawn, but it's the official red and white sign, but it's not, doesn't stand up with a pole, it actually put it in your lawn. So I don't know if the village provides that, or if
I can talk to Chris Wood.
yeah, talk to them because nobody parks on the west side, which is Beverly Hills, and therefore, everybody parks on the east side in Southfield.
On the signage, does it show traffic order number or anything?
I don't know.
Or this is like a
That church
yard
over
sale?
there, they can make arrangements with that church.
No, it looks like an actual sign that says no parking. I mean, if you would see it on the side of the street, it's just stuck in their lawn like a lawn sign. So it's not handwritten. I don't know if it's
No, I mean not handwritten, but printed like a yard thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because if that's public right away, and there's not a traffic order, nothing legal to keep.
Well, that's right, it would be
It looks
enforcement.
official.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's working.
It's definitely working. Nobody parks in Beverly Hills, and everybody parks in Southfield.
They could make arrangements with that church, and also with that.
I'm hoping the swim club will do the right thing. If not, we're gonna have to go for the temporary order, or a combination of, do a temporary order. And the school, ask the swim club to run a shuttle, there you go. A couple dollars a head.
Those are my comments, but also we got in our packet a resolution from Madison Heights objecting to the Oakland County Waste Management Agreement that puts the plant in Pontiac.
Oh.
Because all Oakland County participating communities, didn't all of them have to, or was it a certain threshold had to say yes to that?
I don't think it was every one of them. I think it was,
We passed it.
We passed it, Beverly Hills passed it, I was at their meeting, but Madison Heights had a detailed resolution saying, it's too close to residential, this is either the health effects, and I was wondering, does that hold up the progress?
I don't think it's unanimous.
I was gonna say, the whole point of this was to keep this out of Southfield, I don't want it to come back here.
So they have the incinerator, that's why.
What?
They have the incinerator next to the middle school.
Oh. So I looked at that and kind of was wondering, is it unanimous or is it, okay.
I'm sure it wasn't unanimous, but I don't remember what the percentage, what the threshold was.
So we got that in our packet last week, I was curious as to what the deal with that is. But other than that, nothing.
Yeah, I have a few things. One is, I was reading some announcements in a paper about different cities that were going to have public hearings. And some communities have 1,000-foot notification, people that live within 1,000 feet of the project. And I just wonder if we ought to have our planners take a look at what other communities are doing, and is 350 feet enough? I
State
can
law
throw a
is
rock
only
350
300.
feet.
So we already go beyond what the state law requires. So.
But, I can throw a rock 350 feet. And,
Now you just bragging.
if I pick it up twice.
Or 3 more words.
But, is 350 feet adequate? Yeah. Also, the house next door to me, 23430 Brandywine, is foreclosed. It's in foreclosure. This morning, in the driveway dropped 2 piles of dirt in the driveway. It looks like the mix-ins for concrete. It looks like real fine gravel and sand. There are 2 piles, side by side. I think our building people need to know what's going on there, and do they have permits to do whatever they're gonna be doing. I know when the people moved out, they said that they had, water pipes broke in the winter, and they had some damage in the basement, so I don't know if they're gonna tear up the floor and put in a new floor or what, but,
About that and part of it flushed out.
yeah, but I just think we need to be on top of it so that, I don't wanna.
23340, Brent?
23460. That's my house, 23430. Okay? It's a circular driveway, it's got 2 piles of sand to driveway. If they need more than that, go next door, knock on the door, and I'll show them. The next item is, I have been asked by the Martin Luther King Jr. Task Force if we can also name Civic Center Drive additionally, put an additional street sign as Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, as we do for the, during the month of February, or January, but make it permanent. It would be in addition to Civic Center Drive, not to change the whole.
Change the address.
You would not change anything, but it would add like a.
Underneath it.
Yeah, underneath, yeah, it would be.
We researched that, I thought, at one time, because I know there was a situation also at St. John's Anglican Church, they wanted to rename Manukian Drive, they're between the post office.
They did for a while.
And, well, no, there's a sign that goes up and a sign that goes down, and the sign that's there now is like on their parking.
So you wouldn't really be renaming
But
it.
it was the post office, I thought.
But you're not renaming it, it still remains Civic Center. It's just, I've seen it a lot out by the Veteran Cemetery. There's a street name, but then they have another, it's a different color sign even. The regular one is white and then it goes to a green, and it's in memory of some corporal or something. So I think if it's a memorial kind of thing, if you're not changing the street name, you're just kind of, it's more of an informal kind of memorial.
Yeah, I was a little concerned when I was first asked, because if it did change the street name, now people get confused.
Yeah.
Because if something happens, someone comes in from out of town, and they say, well, I'm on Martin Luther King Drive, and police and fire need to know where to go, EMS needs to go, and it would have to change on maps and everything, but if it's, like you say, if it's a memorial type sign, it would be for our
Right,
use.
you would never, right, so the post office, there's no confusion for the post office.
Right.
So it's still Civic Center.
Well, we never called Adler Highway, and that sign's on there for decades. Northwestern Highway in front of Sheriff's Attic.
Yeah.
It's Adler, Morris Adler Memorial.
Is there anything that
There's a
recognizes
sign.
it? Under the main sign?
No, it's
No,
on,
no,
as you
no,
drive
the
along,
expressway.
as you drive along there.
No, that was that portion of the
Yeah,
highway, that's state highway.
yeah, exactly, but what I'm saying is nobody calls it Adler Highway.
No,
Right.
well, that's why it's a waste, really.
We're gonna have a kiosk out there. I could see something like the Martin Luther King Memorial Pathway. I just think it's a little confusing to have
Yeah, that's a good
two
idea.
street signs, one right under the other. But if we're gonna have the kiosk out there, we could probably say this is the historic Martin Luther King Pathway, and maybe a message about, the MLK Task Force in Southfield.
Yeah, I don't want to change Civic Center Boulevard, I mean, that's.
It's not gonna change anything.
I know, but I wouldn't add anything onto it. I mean, if we want to put it somewhere else, I wouldn't, not permanently, I wouldn't add anything on it. I don't care what it is.
There might be an opportunity, I saw the demo on our mobile app, and it looks like September 1st we'll be moving forward. I think it's gonna knock some socks off. I mean, it is very robust, the things it can do, multiple points, and it's a good platform for the city to start growing on. We're gonna start with up to 150 points of interest, and it'll be a menu where you'll be able to do, from restaurants to the city, Oberlin, Ohio, Franken Move, the same company, designed it. It's pretty robust, but when you get to some of these points of interest, it's even got the we'll be able to do blast, but when you hit a certain point, you could do a blast as well throughout the year. There's certain, as your GPS is picking it up. I think what I saw in the demo was really neat.
I think I'm okay with the suggestion that Jeremy made.
If the
that,
kiosks and...
Yeah, because, you know, I don't think that was an option when I was asked. And I'm sure that, see how it works, at least we can hold off until we see how it's gonna work, and I'm sure that will be satisfactory. I think it will.
The mobile app will give us a lot of kiosk-like opportunities. When you hit certain points, things will come in, to walk into certain buildings, links from, Groupon, different things.
Okay. Last one I have is, are we anywhere with Courtney Ritchie?
They did a re-inspection of her house a week and a half ago. My understanding is nothing has really changed, so I believe we're moving forward with demolition. There is no real ability to do financially what has to be done there. And so my fear is that, it'll sit there and sit there and sit there, and we're never going to be any closer because it's an issue of money. It's an issue of substantial money. So I believe at some point, probably relatively shortly, you'll see an award to a demolition contract.
Okay. I don't have a dog in this fight, other than voting on it, but, because the details are...
Right.
And there's no way we can convince her to sell the house as is. I mean, that's a shame. We're losing a piece of property off our tax rolls. And
there was already some, and that's where I think we had to really tread lightly, because I think at some point there was something she was saying that we were trying to get the house away from her to give to somebody or something. So I don't want to get into, that. You're right. If she sold it and she could get at least something.
And the tax situation could be resolved.
Right.
Our unfortunate position is to push this is demolition, and we will have a vacant lot for a few years.
She's not getting anything.
Well, it also means, because we know she is behind substantially in her property taxes, we know that on a foreclosure, our lien gets wiped out. So if we spend $10,000, $12,000 to demo this house, we put a lien on the property, as soon as it gets sold for tax foreclosure, we get wiped out. And that's the unfairness of that statute, that we're the ones at the local level with the problem, and then they sell that tax down and we get wiped out.
Yeah, but we're going to be made whole with property tax, personal property tax.
Right. Yeah, that's what you're worried about.
Why don't you just go ahead and get somebody to list it?
Well, how can we do that? It's not our property.
I know that, convince her to...
I don't think she wants to.
No, that is her home.
She's a fixation.
And she, I can think a lot of people, if you have an emotional attachment to your home, she definitely does. And, an objective, that would be the thing to do. Sell it, get something out of it, somebody has the money to come in and put it back up to code, that's the obvious answer, but, she can't get through the emotional part to it, so.
Well, whoever has the mortgage on it...
There is no mortgage on it. There's no mortgage.
I just had one item, just seeing if we could do, I talked to you earlier about it, but a citywide garage sale, if we could pick a date, maybe in July or August, and everybody...
Next year?
This year. Not too late.
It would be...
this is July, August, yeah.
Maybe before
August,
starts.
yeah. Date.
That sounds like a good idea.
We're going to have it.
Yeah.
On your yard, Don.
On your own.
On your own property.
Everyone come in down the house and just drop me off their truck.
So, but it's
down Evergreen Road.
Someone could drive through.
So how are you going to control all the people that have already paid for a garage sale?
Everybody still has to pay, but just promote.
No one pays?
No, everybody still pays. But this is the day that we're going to host it.
Did you see that one that was on M24? was it
Oh,
Sunday
going
this
up
year?
and,
And it was they built it as the world's largest garage sale, and it went like for miles
Or
along
Huron,
the road.
up to Fort Hudson.
Right, now we should do that.
Yeah,
That was
it
great.
goes all the way down south from
something
Kentucky, what's that called? That's the biggest garage sale in the world.
Stuff, and they just
They start
line
from
all
Kentucky
day.
and
Yeah, but no,
go all
what
over.
I'm saying is that, just
I know
everybody
what you're talking
yeah,
about.
you're saying just designate kind of a garage sale day.
but there are,
I think Berkeley did that. I think it was Berkeley.
there are some communities that waive the fee or reduce the fee.
Oh.
And I'm just thinking, we got an August 5th election, we'll have to close out an election.
Well, we'll also have to try to calculate how many people, we won't have enough signs. We try to order per year, so we don't have extras.
But since you're doing it, citywide, maybe we could do some sort of, here are the homes that are participating, rather than having, 1,000 signs in front of one person's neighborhood.
And we could probably do something with social media.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of.
So it could be a little different.
Waive the,
Well, we
waive
used
the
to have it
fee.
on the front lawn, everyone was brought there.
Oh, there was one?
There was one years ago on the front lawn, everyone got a you paid, I wanna say it was $10, was it $10? Or maybe it was $5 for a table, and you brought all your stuff, and it was,
Maybe next year we can organize that.
it was all day, it was
I'm not a fan of secondhand stuff on my.
We got a lot going on.
Yeah, we
No, I-
do. Yeah.
Pack it all up, bring it over here, put it on the
Quick,
table.
the one that
Yeah,
go
settle
home.
things.
I think it's a good idea.
The annual garage sale, well, open stop. Really?
Why?
What?
Couldn't do it. They couldn't do it.
Huh.
I did it 2 years ago.
That was in the big garage, right?
Did they have it like in the, yeah, where the farmer's market stuff is?
No,
No,
this
not
is
there,
down-
oh, downtown, yeah.
This is downtown.
That big parking lot.
It was a big business downtown.
And it wasn't all garage sales.
You can call the chamber, Red Oak Chamber, and find out why.
Really nice, and some of it was jewelry that people would.
That is sponsored by the Royal Oak Chamber, so you can call the chamber office and find out what their problem is.
Good point.
All right, is there anything else to come to this meeting? Good meeting, everybody.
Who was I talking about the RDI the other day? 72. Anybody?
What?
The RDI.